Welcome back, everybody, to the Scale Success Reptile podcast. Thank you for everybody joining me tonight. We have a special guest today, Brittney Gobble. So, thank you guys again for joining us tonight. We already have a few people here in the comments here supporting Brittney. This is say a quick update what's going on in the Clovers Reptiles world. Um, it's been a few weeks since we had a podcast. Been doing a couple shows here and there. Went to Dallas, Texas. Um, it was a great show. Met a lot of new reptile keepers, new vendors. Got our animals in hands of other hognose breeders. So that was really cool. So really looking forward to seeing what those people do with our animals into their projects. So we did that. Then we had Repticon. What is it for Walton Beach? It's almost in the panhandle of Florida 2 weeks ago. Another great show. Usually the usual Florida show vendors and stuff like that. But met a lot of different new reptile keepers, new faces. Had got two little girls their first hognose, so that's always something special because that's how we started. My daughters got me into the hognose. So that's always a special, when I get to have, give a little girl a hognose is very special for me. So we did that. And then now, was it this weekend? We're heading all the way back to Texas. So we're doing Reptilian Nation, Houston, Texas this weekend. We're doing there's going to be a drive unlike we did last time. Last time we flew. So, we're going to drive this time with our good friend Eslin Exotic Firehogs. We're going to do we're going to be set up together. So if you guys are in the Houston area or traveling out there, make sure to stop by, say hi to both of us, and check out some really cool hognose. Don't have much left from the 2023 season, but there is still some very, really good animals, high end, some lavender stuff, corals, Arctic condas, Arctic sable stuff. So if you guys are looking for some special projects, we will have them in Houston, and they're also available on our Morph Market. And then our breeding season went really, really well. What's it called? What we have? We have 11 clutches in the incubator right now. I think Friday is supposed to be the first hatch date, and we'll be in Houston. My family will be here, so they'll check on that stuff. So looking forward for that, for those things to start hatching this season. And now waiting to see if any of the females will do some double clutches. Looks like 2 or 3 out of the 12 females that we have are going to double clutch. So also looking forward to that. Other than that, I have a big announcement actually. We're getting very close to the 1,000 subscriber mark. So with that being said, I am going to do a giveaway as a thank you to all the subscribers. I know I'm going to put out a video either the end of this week or beginning next Monday. Just locking down a couple of other of our friends that are donating some credit to an animal or something like that we're gonna finishing up that, and then I'll put out the video on the exactly how to participate in the giveaway if you guys want to win. We're gonna give away I'm gonna give you guys, I already know we already selected a hognose we're gonna give away. It's gonna be a male 2023 male, and it's gonna be double het for Mai Tai, so sable and toffee belly. So that's a really cool project. If you guys want to get into that project, make sure you guys subscribe, hit the like button, and then look out for that giveaway video so you guys can go maybe start your Mai Tai project or add to it if you guys need a male. So we have that, and we're going to have Ship Your Reptiles going to do a giveaway as well. Blue Tongue Republic is going to do some really cool swag from his store that he's done, some hognose art. And we did a collab to this for this special giveaway. It's going to be some clover and hognose art. And what else we have? I know I'm missing something else. There's another major giveaway. Oh, Husbandry Pro is going to do a 6 months of free subscription giveaway as well. So make sure you guys, like I said, tune into that. It's going to be really exciting. We're going to do a live giveaway, and for the people that are donating, if they want to come on the live and while we're giving away the item that they donated or the voucher that they donated, we're gonna have it on our live here, probably doing like on a Saturday or Sunday weekend, so everybody can tune in. Um, and other than that, like I said, breeding season it's in full effect. So before we bring on the guests, give a quick shout out to our sponsorships and our partners. Sea Serpent Rack and Incubators is the official sponsorship of Clover's Reptile and Scale Success Reptile podcast. If you're looking for a PVC rack or incubator, make sure to check them out. We've been using their racks for the past 2 years, and it's a great product, and they have great customer service. Now let's mention our partnerships. Reptilinks has partnered up with Clover's Reptiles and Scale Success Reptile podcast. If you want to feed a diverse diet to your reptiles, make sure to check them out and use Clover to get $5 off your next order. If you want to take your husbandry and record keeping to the next level, make sure to take advantage of the free 30-day trial with our link in the description below or scan the QR code on your screen. Husbandry Pro has helped us keeping track of our breeding plans, our hatchlings, and overall just keeping us organized with all of our reptiles. Make sure to use shipyourreptiles.com to receive or ship your reptiles and use Clover's 15 to save $15 off any one shipment. All right, guys. Again, thank you again to our sponsorship, Sea Serpents, Chris. Great customer service, great guy. He's been into the reptile hobby for a long time. Always a big supporter of US Arc. That's another thing. Big shout out to US Arc National and US Arc Florida. If you guys don't have a membership, go ahead to their websites. The links to their website are in the description below, and get a membership to their US Arc National and US Arc Florida. They're two separate entities, but they're always fighting. Both are always fighting against any legislations that would limit us on keeping reptiles or even some certain exotic animals, because sometimes those laws overlap. And one thing about Husbandry Pro, now we have a code Clover60. When you sign up, there should be a code box. If you put Clover60, now you get 60 days free trial instead of a 30-day free trial. So check that out. We love Husbandry Pro. It's one of our favorite programs to use. And before we bring Brittney on, I'm going to say a quick shout out to the early birds here, the people that are supporting us. Justin, Ozark Mountain Morphs, what's going on? Thanks for joining in, bud. He's another just getting into the Hognose. I think he had a first one clutch last year. We vended together in Dallas. I had an extra table, and he took the opportunity to vend with us. So really cool. Spent the weekend with him and his wife. Thanks for joining in. H&H Pythons, thank you for joining us. I think this is the first time I see you here. Seems like you're here. We're supporting Brittney, so thank you from both of us joining here. Jessica Denmark Dens, thank you for joining us as well. Casey, Golf Reptiles Creation, thanks for joining, man. And thank you for joining YouTube member, becoming a YouTube member here with us. We also have YouTube memberships. If you guys want to support and get some exclusive content, join the membership on our channel. The Fat Man Nation, thanks for joining us. Here to support Brittney. All right, everybody. Like I said, thank you. And without further ado, we're going to bring on Brittney. Here.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us, Brittney. How's it going tonight?
Going good. How's it going for you?
Doing good. Like I had mentioned, just getting ready for the Houston, Texas show. So, just last minute feedings, the adults, cleanups, and then tomorrow packing everything and hitting the road Thursday morning. So,
Crazy.
it is, but I think that's one of our what I've told, when people ask, this is only our second year breeding Hognose. And we've had a decent amount of success with, selling our Hognose and getting them to the hands of different people. And one of the biggest things people have asked is how, and one of our biggest success was doing the shows, especially being brand new. It's getting in front of people, pet owners and even other breeders. Sometimes you need to see that animal in front of you that makes the decision to get it, right?
Oh yeah. And for me personally, I work with several different reptiles or species, but I think the hognose community is one of the most supportive communities as far as when you're out there and, I don't vend shows. Oh no, my light's flickering. Um, I don't vend shows, but going to the shows and talking to the breeders, and then they're so cool to be, send people your way if you happen to have something, or if they know you're looking for a certain piece, they'll watch out for you, and you'll get a text message, "Hey, you need
Yeah.
to go check that table."
Yeah.
So I love the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah, I agree. We had that same incident happen in Dallas. Alicia Harper Harbins and Alicia and her husband, they somebody was looking for just a regular albino, to take home as a pet, and I had one on the table, and they sent the person right over to my table, and you know, a young teenager got his first hognose, so it was cool. Like you said,
So
that's
cool. Yeah, the
yeah, that
Harbins are
support is
awesome.
yeah, they are really really cool people, really good support for each other. Like you said, my first deep dive into the reptile community was through the hognose. I've always had, as a pet keeper here and there, but never really immersed myself into like the whole hobby and the community, the vending stuff, until I decided that I was gonna start breeding hognose and needed really to, figure this out. And luckily, I can't give more props than I already do, but as an exotic fire hogs was, you know, so welcoming, and we're close to each other, and he let me come in and you know be watch him do what he does with the breeding season and everything. He gave me
That's
a
amazing.
little boost in the experience.
Oh yeah,
So,
for sure. Yeah, this
yeah.
community is awesome. I mean,
Hmm.
I have had great experiences in the ball python community too. So and the blood python community. But I have to say the hognose guys, man, they're tight. They're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
well, it's not all guys. There's girls in there too.
That's right. We have
you
you.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of my missions too, is bringing on more, specifically, hognose breeder females are breeding hognose. Because I have two little girls that, the hognose were not on my radar until they brought it up to my attention. They're like, they were like, we want a hognose or a corn snake. And when I started researching hognose, I was like, okay, we're doing hognose. you know, and then we got one, and then it was like a wildfire, just grew from
yeah,
there.
you can't. That's the biggest lie ever. You'll just get
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You know, and was say, what's your quick like start in reptiles? What age were you at, and how did you start?
So my husband Johnny and I, we did cats. We
Mm,
did the lycoi and the servals and the African, the savannas.
mm-hmm.
So we were very big into the cats, and obviously mammals take a different level of care than um, snakes. Not that snakes are not hard work; reptiles are still a lot of work, but obviously, the amount of handling and that kind of thing is a lot different. And so as he started looking at retiring and I started having some health issues, I needed something that was a little less physical all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, you know what? I love genetics. I love breeding. I love pairing things and then, being excited to see like what you're going to get. Like you know genetically what's possible, but sometimes you don't know what all you're going to hit and then what it's going to come out looking
Yeah.
like. And so I started really looking at the reptiles. And I actually came into the reptiles with leopard geckos. I believe it's like 2016, 2017. And I think I had leopard geckos for maybe 6 or 7 months before I was ordering like my first like hog nose. And it was not just one, it was, hey, JMG, what's your list like? And then this one would go with this one, and I think our first order of hognose was like 7 or 8 hognose. It all came in at once, and it was like, okay, we're in hognose, and that was like I said, I think it was 2017ish, going into
Okay.
2018, and from there it was just the next year we got into ball pythons, and about 2 years later into the or a year later into the blood pythons. So I'm addicted.
Yeah.
But
Um.
those, I have to say, I have more ball pythons than I have the other species, but
Mhm.
the hog nose, I love the personalities. Um, Ball pythons are pet rocks, which is great. They're easy to take care of. Don't know if they'll eat, but they're easy to take care of. Hognose are little spitfires, and I love that because you're sitting in there, and I don't know about yours, but mine can see because they're semi clear,
Yep.
so they can
Hmm.
see you. and they'll just sit there and huff at you. And I'm like, I'm not bothering you. I'm not even touching you, but you're all just right up there, their little faces pressed up against the thing, just like wanting to gripe about it the whole time.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love that. I don't
Yeah.
know how they survive in the wild, but
That's a mystery that I think is we're never going to solve. And you mentioned something about ball pythons being like a pet rock, and sometimes people don't like that term, like pet rock, but they are named ball pythons, right? Because they ball up and
yes.
they stay very still and stuff like that. Um, great, like you said, great animals, especially as a beginner animal, very easy to handle, even for little kids.
Oh yeah.
Because they are girthier animals, and like they ball up and just sit in your hand for the most
Oh
part,
yeah.
right? So very cool. Um, it's very interesting because I've seen most people go ball pythons, then hognose, but you went the opposite way.
It's
Um, and what attracted you to ball pythons after the hognose?
the genetics. And if
Okay.
I'm being completely honest, is that first group that we ordered with JMG was a lot of, I mean, it was like the triple A's and the lavenders and sables, and it was a lot of what was out
Mhm.
available. And once you've, it's like Pokemon, once you've collected them all, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
And I was like, I had more, I had enough time, I had enough space, I wanted to do more. And it was on Morph Market. That's a dangerous place. You should never just hang out on Morph Market if you're bored.
Hmm.
And ran across, the ball pythons and started realizing these other colors. And I was like, okay, so I went to Johnny and I was like, hey, so I'm thinking we should get a couple ball pythons. He's like, you just spent like 10K on hognose. Why do you need more snakes? And I'm like, hear me out. Um, and yeah, it was, but it's great. I
Hmm.
can't imagine though. We've talked about it before. If we had to pare down to one species and we could only own the one species, it would be hognose.
Okay.
Just, I still, my collection's still small. You
Hmm.
have far more clutches than me this year. I think my seventh is in the incubator right
Okay.
now. And I have a few more that I'm waiting to lay. My leucistic laid one little like dud egg, but then went and got in her box today. So fingers crossed that was the start.
Yeah.
And here in just a little while, we're gonna have some eggs. So we've got a few more clutches, but it's still small, which I love, but a lot of cool projects to work with.
Okay. So about how many ball python breedings are you doing a year now then?
I think we're getting close to 30 clutches this
Okay.
year on the ball pythons, which is our biggest year ever.
Hmm.
And again, I know because I've had people ask me this, like, oh, in this, with the economy being a little bit down, I mean, we're still selling, people are still, making sales, but everybody's kind of watching the market. For us though, a lot of these are breedings that I needed for myself to keep things back
Hmm.
for that next stage. So yes, some are going into will be available, but a lot of these are just simply things that I needed for my own program.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a very important process, especially like you said this year, that sales might not be as good as the last previous 2 3 years. Um, you know, Taking that chance of creating brown snakes, to further certain projects, or creating a single visual to with multiple heads to further a project. I think if you're looking for the future and for the long run, I think that's going to be a very good step to take this year and maybe even
Yeah.
next year, as the market starts picking back up, um,
Oh yeah.
because with
Which
those
again,
animals, yeah,
oh, go ahead.
because those animals most of the times they're going to be holdbacks, right? So you're going to
Yeah.
have a whole clutch of holdbacks, so you're not worried about selling them.
No, it's
Yeah,
like, ah, oh, darn, I have to keep that one too. Um,
yeah.
but with the hot dogs, I will say though, we've not really seen the drop like there was with the ball
Hmm.
pythons. So I
Hmm.
think we have maybe a couple of boys from last year. We don't have
Hmm.
very much left from last year at all. So
Yeah,
that's exciting, but it's like, come on, I need more babies. Need more hog nose. So I'm
yeah.
impatient waiting.
One thing that it's very surprising too. With like when I speak to my buddies that do like ball pythons and stuff, they always get surprised about the amount of eggs hognose lay, and then the ability of double clutch. Like, oh my god, with 12 females, you get 100 eggs around, right? Like in ball
Yes.
python for the usual, it's nowhere near that. You know.
Oh yeah, that's wild. My very first clutch of hognose was a sable female to a het sable male. And I cannot remember off the top of my head the exact number of eggs, but I think it was something like 15 in the first clutch and 15ish in the second clutch, something along those lines. And
Yeah.
most of them, over half of each clutch ended up being visual sable. And I was like, this is awesome. So the rest were het sable. But
Yeah.
the first clutch that year, not the double clutch, the first clutch paid for my entire hognose program that I had bought. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is insane.
Yeah.
I was shocked at how small the eggs were. Like, it's like, how
Oh
is a
yeah.
snake? They're not much bigger than some of my large leopard gecko because I had some of the giants. So
Yeah.
I had some big, and I was looking at them like, how is a snake going to come out of these little tiny eggs? But there's nothing more fun than like opening it and seeing all the little tiny hognose coming out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And talking about genetics too, what I've people have asked me why I decided to breed the hognose and just instead of maybe picking another species and breeding those. My biggest attraction was the difference of colors between most of the genetics and the combos. Yeah, of course, we're getting to certain triple visual, recessive visual stuff, quad visual stuff that ends up in being like a pinkish hue snake.
Yeah.
But for a lot of for the most part, you can tell what combo is what combo, you know, um, between hognose. Where sometimes with the ball pythons, it's um, I always say it's always a yellow base pattern, right? I always tell my friends if and when I get a ball python, I'll get like a pet. I'm gonna get an Xantic, uh, something maybe like a true ghost, because those colors are so different from the rest of
Yes.
other stuff. Um,
Oh yeah, for sure. I love that hognose. I almost feel like I do a lot of artwork and things like
mhm,
that. And coming from that, what I love is hognose. I feel like although they don't have as many hues as ball pythons,
mhm,
like you said, there's the xanthics and how many different hypos and oranges. Like there's so many
correct.
other colors,
Mhm,
but within the palette that the hognose has, it's there's so much variability. Like I have
correct.
lemon ghost, and I have
Mhm,
lemon ghosts that range from I'm talking lime green. Every time I open these bins, I just think it's a joke because it's so insane. Like just
yeah.
doesn't seem normal. To like oh that's yellow, and it's just every variation in between, and we see
Mhm,
that with each of the colors. Even just you could look at corals, and
yep.
even between corals there's different shades. This one's slightly more purple, this one's slightly more pink. And I think that gives us a little bit more room if we pay attention to create more depth of color. Um,
Yeah.
that's my opinion personally.
No, I think so too. And then, especially with hognose, I feel like line breeding and specific like phenotype breeding is
Yes.
very popular. So, like you said, you have the yellow albino and then you have the extreme red, albino stuff. And then once you mix that up like with sable, like you said, with lavender, then you create such a big difference of a combo. It's really cool. I think that's one of our favorite things too is being able to select those. I always tell people the one of the coolest parts about hatching out hognose is I get to pick whatever attracts me the most first, and then
Yes.
I'll put out whatever I decide not to keep. I've even had like stuff that I had on my for sale rack, and then when shed happens and there's a extreme exchange, like a Arctic sable went full black on
Yeah.
me, and I go, okay, you're staying now. You know.
I think my funniest one was we were trying to make lavenders, and
Hmm.
because we were working on this purple people eater, which we hatched last year. But before that, we were like trying, like, okay, let's make some of these. Let's. So we had some lavender combos coming out, and in this one clutch, we got them, had them all out after they'd all shed. And we were looking at the bin with all the babies, and there were two babies that were green, and they weren't from a lemon ghost project. They were just so like the scale tipping was green. I mean, you just looked at it and you're like purple babies and green babies.
Babies.
And I got so fascinated. So Johnny comes in and he's like, "What are you photographing? Like so detailed." And I was like cell phone videoing it. And he's like, "Those sables are awesome." I'm like, "Which sables?" And he goes, "The ones
It
in
was
the
your
bin." I'm like,
picture.
"Yeah, but did you see this one?" He goes, "That's a het, Brittney." I'm like, "I'm aware, but did you see how green it is?"
Yeah.
So we kept the green ones just because, again, they were it. It was unusual. Not all of
Hmm.
them were that way, but there was a couple that were just insanely cool. I
Hmm.
don't know why my camera just keeps not doing the balance today.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
No
Flicker
worries.
warning.
Let me see. If there might be a setting. Let me
I think
see.
it's just mine. Let me see if I block the shine in the back. It's trying to like white balance me here. Okay, that might be
Okay.
better.
There you go. Yeah.
It's trying to
Um.
figure out where my face is, but I'm so pale it can't tell if it's the glare on the photo behind me or my face.
Yeah. It's the movement of the hands. It captures your hands,
I
I
know
think.
I did notice that, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to like sit on them, but I'm
It's
sorry I
okay.
talked too much.
I get it. I get it. Yeah. Um. You know, and one thing you know, and like I said, my limited knowledge about ball pythons, like is very limited. You know, I just late last year I really started absorbing more information and stuff for ball pythons, and just because the ball pythons are the leaders of the reptile world in genetics, any new innovations like shed testing, any products
Oh,
stuff
but
like that.
that's coming. That's coming for the
Yes,
Hognose so soon.
yes, yes. So that's another very interesting part about there's so many things that we teeter and go back and forth on, like in the Hognose, is this polygenic? Is it dominant? It'll be good to have a definite answer, and I think
Yes,
once we have those answers, those projects are going to really take off, and people are
I
going to
think
be
so
able to
too.
work a lot more, like true hypo, um, what else? RB pastel, all those stuff that you know. There's mixed, just because of the way it worked. There's mixed reviews on it.
Yeah,
If we get a definite answer on that stuff, I'll be very happy. And
me
then
too.
to figure out, like some of the quad head stuff that's coming out. All right, what is it? Is it a triple head? Is it a quad head thing? I mean, visual. It'd be really cool to see.
Oh, I definitely agree. We have true hypo. I'm actually some of my breedings this year is true hypo to
Hmm.
sable because I'm
Hmm.
really wanting to like get that blue, like trying to
Yeah.
bring out that real nice tone, but I want to darken the color so that I can then put the hypo on it and caramel it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the true hypo, it's frustrating because you've got these leaders of the industry and some see one thing and some see the other, and then I know what I'm seeing.
Hmm.
So I'm very much looking forward to some of these genes having the
Hmm.
test. And another thing I'm looking forward to with the test is being able to train our own eyes.
Yes.
Um, because, with our ball pythons, now that the DNA testing is available, we're actually, some of them, we're just testing just to see if it's something silly like yellow belly or asphalt. Okay, those are
Hmm.
very basic genes. We're pretty sure we know what we see, but we're still sending in sheds for some of these because we're wanting to confirm. Because the more we can see and have an actual DNA test for it, that can help our eye to get better, because let's be real, we're basing on our knowledge, we're guessing.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we it is based on experience, but it will be nice now that we can have a DNA test to back that, to be
Yeah.
able to
Yeah.
then, be like, okay, no, with confidence, we could have this variation to this variation and it still be a yellow belly or, I'm looking forward to that in the hog nose because
Yeah.
there is huge difference in like Arctic. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, we're, like you said, we're humans. We have our eyes, we perceive certain colors different ways too. So, um, you know, even if you have, I think, 10 years plus of breeding, you can, that one hognose can definitely slip through. And okay, you say it's Arctic, but it might not be, or might be. I've I've had some friends that will do super Arctic, and just have to be, just to guarantee that everything is Arctic in the clutch, and then
Yeah,
have to go back and forth like, is it not? It's one of those things, once you start looking at it, your eyes start playing tricks on you, and you're like, well, I see this now, and you start get double guessing yourself as well.
oh yeah, and then when you, I don't know if this happens to you, but sometimes with your clutches, when you will have them and it's fairly clear, like, okay, this is clearly Arctic, this
Hmm.
one's clearly not, this one is something in between. So you're like, okay,
Yeah.
well, then you tell the buyer, this is the breeding, it looks in between, or whatever, that kind
Hmm.
of thing. But then when you sell either the normal or the visual, then you're like, hang on a second though. How can this one, now you're
Yeah.
the comparison, you don't have as much to compare to.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, maybe I was wrong about that one.
Yeah.
Um,
And
Another one
then.
that got me was the sables. I wasn't
Hmm.
aware that sables got so much lighter after hatching
Hmm.
when I first got into them. And to the point that they can actually look just like a dark normal, but they can still be a het sable.
Hmm.
And then they can darken back up again. Even, we had one that was born black almost,
Hmm.
lightened, and then by the time it was 2 years old, she was almost completely black again,
Hmm.
and really cool. But yeah, I wasn't aware of that. So it would be nice, I think, also for buyers to have that confidence because they didn't get to see the baby sables hatch.
Correct.
So you can provide pictures, but then if you're like, no, no, this is for sure a sable from two
Yeah.
sable parents, but it's a little lighter, they can have the confidence that, yeah, I did get what you're saying I got.
Hmm. Yeah, and then with the Arctic gene, as it sheds, there's so many changes sometimes. From lightens up to gets green to gets pink, and then lightens up again. Through the whole lifespan of that growth time frame, they start changing. So it's very
Yeah.
interesting in that part. You know, Genetics. So what's currently your favorite hognose? What's it called? It could be a combo because sometimes it's hard to
Okay.
choose one. You know.
For the combo, I would have to say Mai Tai.
Okay.
I have loved Mai Tai since I saw it.
Mhm.
Johnny's is definitely the purple people eater.
Okay.
My favorite morph though, or I guess gene, not a combo. My favorite gene by itself is pink pastel.
Mm.
I absolutely love pink pastel because I love that instead of the yellow pigments in between the spots, you do get that really nice pink.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, that'd be pink pastel.
Yeah.
And probably one of my most excited I'm working with would be the Swiss chocolates.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And with pink pastel, the name says it all. It's definitely a pink pastel color. Like if you can just Google pink pastel color, it's exactly what it is. And it is a beautiful color on its own. And you add sable to it. You even add an albino Arctic, and it just intensifies that color. Um,
Oh, it's amazing
yeah.
because you have that pigment in between the
Hmm.
spots, which
Hmm.
we really don't have as much on that natural hognose or even the basic albino.
Yeah. And for the viewers that are not familiar with the combos, Mai Tai is a double recessive toffee belly and sable combo visuals. And then the other one you said, purple people eater, is lavender and sable.
Yes.
Um, you know, so that's another really cool thing. I think the lavender gene in hognose is really cool to see. It varies like any other,
Oh,
it varies
yes.
so much. You get your, very, very light, almost grayish lavenders, and then you get like your purple lavenders.
Oh, yeah.
But it
It
definitely
varies.
varies. Yeah.
Which makes sense because, like, so for us, we made the double heads and we sold some to a couple other breeders. And then we laughed because theirs, and theirs babies, their purple people eaters all looked a little bit different. But it
Hmm.
also made sense because my initial sable pair from JMG, the female was from his red line. I didn't
Hmm.
know it when I bought it, but it was from his like where he had just kind of isolated out the red, not albino, just that real. She was
Yeah.
burgundy. She was this rich burgundy. So when her clutches hatched, I had either this deep purple burgundy color or I had a really cool green color. Like that,
Hmm.
I got one of the two every time.
Yeah.
So knowing that that's in the background, what she produces, it makes sense that now these babies, when you add that purple on top, some are going to come out a little bit cooler with that green base, but other ones are going to have got mom's burgundy red,
Hmm.
or I guess grandmother at this point, but it's going to have gotten that color in there. So you would get a variation of shades, even
Hmm.
just within, that lavender.
Yeah. And I was speaking to one of our customers, and they bought a purple line. Well, they were looking between a purple line Conda albino uh, het lavender and a same clutch mate, but I didn't label as purple line because I didn't see the intensity of purple line in it.
Yeah.
So they were asking me like, well, they're clutch mates, why are they not labeled? I was like, because I don't see the intensity. So I was like, it's a bloodline trait. It's a line bred trait where it varies, and you might get some to express the gene and some not. So yeah, at this point, it will be outcrossed purple line. And that's another, you like you said, visual to see and to get that knowledge of not everything that comes out the clutch is going to be exactly what you're expecting, or not everything's going to be purple line. Even a purple line, I see that you get those very high intensity stuff, and then sometimes you just get a regular, either albino or normal, whatever it is. I got which he's on my market right now, and he's already to the point where like I might keep him. He's a purple line Arctic lavender het albino male, and I bring him to the shows in there, and people see him like that's the most purple lavender I've ever seen. Because he is deep purple. His belly is like almost maroon color purple.
Wow.
Yeah, very nice. I decided to keep an Arctic coral from that clutch. So it's almost like,
Oh,
what do I do? Do I keep both, and stuff like that? But sometimes you have to
keep them
let some of
all.
the
Keep them all.
keep them all, right? Yeah.
Oh,
So do you have a process on deciding on how to keep holdbacks?
yes, because we are smaller and we're not trying to grow huge. For me, a lot of times I'm trying to take a step up from the parents. So
Hmm.
I'm keeping things that would potentially replace the parents within my program.
Hmm.
And not right away, because obviously you want to make sure they're breeding and everything's great before you would sell the parents. Otherwise you could shoot yourself in the foot and
Yeah.
mess up your program. Um, but for us, it's typically would be we kind of already know up front. Listen, I need a male or I need a female. Our breeding plan, of course, it changes. We all know how breeding plans work, but our breeding plans go out almost 5 years. So, like, if
Hmm.
we hit this and this year, then the next step would be this and the next step would be this and this. It can change some. That can change if a new morph comes out or something else catches our eye. But for the most part, we kind of have an idea, which means I know, listen, I need a pair from this or I need a female from this. Then it would be, okay, these are the boys from the clutch. Which is the one that I think speaks for that project? So if it's a project that I'm looking for those greens, I'm going to keep the greens. If it's a project where I'm looking for reds or I'm looking for more contrast, because I mean we've all seen that as
Hmm.
some have great contrast, some have less contrast. So then it would go down to that. So it's where it starts. But an exceptional animal, if there's just something that comes out just amazing, it's probably gonna stay whether it was planned or not.
I hear that. I hear that.
There's just sometimes one comes out and you're
Yeah.
like, man, the
Yeah.
colors are so strong on this one. How can I let it go when it could be such a valuable piece? And sometimes it's two of them, and I'll keep them in debate. And then you really because especially if it's a female, people are going to jump when you
Hmm.
release a holdback even
Hmm.
later. So if you can keep it to where it's which sometimes it's hard, but if you can keep it to where you're not financially like, I have to make a decision and I have to sell this right this instant, that does give you a little bit more time to kind of see, how they develop. Like you said, I mean, each shed can change things.
Yeah, for sure. And I have a male right now. He's a purple line albino conda. No hets. He just came out so nice, red orange, that I kept him. And I look at him, I was like, do I take him to Houston with me? Do I not? Just because he's gonna sit here and maybe I'll plug him into a project or not. But he's so nice that it's hard to let go. Even if
Yes.
it's not some crazy high end, combo or stuff like that. So he's gonna stay probably at least to Daytona, and I'll make a decision by then if he's really gonna go or stay.
Oh, it's tough. It
It
is
is.
so tough.
It is. With your projects, for both ball pythons and hognose, are you doing a mix of like pet range morphs and high end, or are you more doing to like high end boutique combos?
With the hognose, I would say we do a fairly even split.
Okay.
And I think part of that actually comes from because we are working to put, pink pastel in other
Hmm.
projects, or, we have a lot of genes where it's dominant, which means not all the babies are going to hit it.
Hmm.
That definitely puts you in, it gives you offspring that are of a range to where
Hmm.
they could be available for different, levels of buyers, whether you're just looking for a really pretty pet or whether you're looking for a high end breeder, which that's nice. I with ball pythons, there's a lot of recessives that I work with, so that makes everything's value pretty high. My light hates me today. I have never had to do this before, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I usually do it on my phone, and I think
Okay.
it's because my laptop has a light on it, and it's
Yeah.
messing with my. I have like studio lights up.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to cover with a band-aid next time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
some
It's
conspiracy
probably
theory
your.
watching me.
Yeah. It's probably your. Are you doing from your laptop camera or?
The
y-
laptop camera is on,
Yeah.
and I just see that there's a light on it, and I
Yeah.
don't normally use that. So
Yeah,
I
the
think that's
camera is probably like you said, trying to white balance everything. Whereas
yeah.
where the
Oh,
phone is
guys.
just, just takes whatever comes in. Um but yeah, I mean, and I think that's so you said like ball python, more higher end stuff, and the hog nose, a little bit of mixture of both.
Yeah.
Um and you're not doing shows, but you have morph market, right?
Oh yeah,
Um
we do Morph Market,
mhm.
and of course, Instagram, social media definitely is a big thing. But we do Morph Market has done pretty well as far as
Okay.
that goes. And then just you have people and they
Hmm.
message and they're like, hey, we want true hypo, so let us know when you get some, or
Yeah.
Swiss chocolate. So
Yep.
you've got people waiting on projects. So a lot of stuff doesn't even hit Morph Market
Hmm.
because we know who's also working on it. We can swap because obviously in Hognose that's a big thing. Is
Hmm.
if we're working with double recessive, if we can swap or purchase uh, from somebody else's pair, that is great because then you don't, less inbreeding or line
Correct.
breeding.
Correct.
It's the
Yeah.
same thing, but one's with a good purpose and one's kind of dumb, right?
Yeah, yeah, I hear that. Yeah, it's funny because like this year I bought a Arctic coral female from John Fathom Hogs, and I produced my own Arctic coral female, but I was like, I need a new bloodline. So he had that one at Daytona. I was like, I'll take one. Get a new lavender line in here, and then I'll keep a male. To keep those projects going and stuff like that. But like you said, those out crossing certain bloodlines like that, especially the lavenders, the
Yeah.
PPA stuff,
Hmm.
the Lucy's. What else? Am I missing any of like the I would even say maybe even like toffee belly, um, and albinos. You get some of those bug eyes and short snout stuff that from certain albino lines if they've been inbred too much. Um, and I think that you said outcrossing and stuff. Have you thought about any like wild bloodlines bringing in, or do you have any?
We don't have any right now.
Hmm.
We've talked about it a little bit. We have tried because originally most of our stock came from JMG, and since then we've as much as we adore him, we've tried to kind of go to some other breeders to bring in some other lines, just to be on the safe side. We've not seen the issues, but
Yeah.
you don't you don't want to wait till you're seeing issues either.
Hmm.
Um, like with the Swiss chocolates, for example.
Yeah.
My male is a Het Swiss chocolate. So, I know that that's inbred on that project, but I am using that male as an outcross in another unrelated project
Mm-hmm.
with some of my American females, just because I think it's less likely that they would be. They're not from the exact same project, so I think there's a
Yeah.
better chance at getting some diversity in there.
Yeah.
Same as I did last year. I did Lemon Ghost to my Lucy, just because it was less likely that that wasn't the direction most people were going with Lucy or Lemon Ghost necessarily. So I was like, there's a better chance of having that diversity
Mm-hmm.
with that breeding. And boy, those babies were chubby little things. But I love her.
That's
So
funny.
my Lucy is my obviously there's right now we don't know that there's very far we can go with it. Now, who
Mm-hmm.
knows? Somebody could cross it with a gene and we could come out with some Dalmatians or something weird. Like you don't know until it happens. That's the fun part.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, you kind of get into Lucy knowing you're going to make
Lucy.
Lucy's, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we got in pretty early, and it was so funny because we had been talking to Brent Bumgardner
Mm-hmm.
about this girl he had available, and there weren't many available. And so Johnny and I were going back and forth, and we knew we needed to make a decision. And it was like the most amount we were going to have spent on a single Hognose at this point, right? And I, again, was having health problems, and I was having a problem with my heart, and they couldn't figure out what it was. So they told me to go to the ER to make sure, like get an EKG and make sure there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't anything weird going on. So I'm sitting in the ER for like 6 hours, bored out of my mind. And so I'm like, I'm going to buy the snake, right? So I messaged Brent, but Brent had been talking to me through a different email than the one I emailed him because we were chatting through like text and through Messenger, but it was the business one, not the regular one. So
Mm-hmm.
I messaged him on one and said, I want to buy the Lucy. Just let me know how to pay you. Then I got anxious because I really wanted the Lucy and I'm sitting in an ER bored out of my mind. So I messaged him on his cell phone and said, hey, I just want to make sure you got the other message. I really want the girl. Please don't sell her to somebody else. Like I'll send you however you want the payment. But he didn't recognize the second message. So he messaged back and said, I'm sorry, I just sold her. I was in the ER with heart problems, and my heart was like, I about died. I was like, that was so not cool. Dude, I'm sitting there like hyperventilating. I'm like, they should hook me up now because they're gonna see what's wrong with it. And then he messaged. He goes, "Wait, is this Brittney Gobble?" And I was like, "Yes." He goes, "Oh wait, you're the one I sold it to." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Don't scare me like that."
That's good. That's funny. Yeah, you could have outbid yourself,
Yeah, for sure. That would have been something. He'd been like, "Well, the other person's going to give me 10," and
Yeah.
I'm like, "I'll give you 11."
Yeah. That is funny. Yeah. Like you said, sometimes, scrolling through Morph Market or just through Instagram, and sometimes you see that animal that just catches your eye. When I first started, buying hognose for breeding projects, started off and I'll look at stuff on Morph Market. I'll think about it for a couple days or a week, and I'll go back and it'll be gone.
Oh,
You know,
Hognose goes so fast.
yeah. And if one thing I've told people is, if you're looking at it, there's a reason why you're looking at it, and there's probably multiple people looking at that hognose right now.
Oh
And if
yeah,
you're able to buy it, and if you need, especially if you're looking for a breeding project and it's exactly what you're looking for, don't think about it too much. Maybe take 24 hours, right? You don't want to do an impulse buy, but after
right.
24 hours, it's a gamble that sometimes is not going to be there. Um,
Yeah.
I right before the show, I had a customer hit me, message me on Morph Market, and they already paid a Arctic Conda double het coral female. And they're telling me, I was looking at one other, but then I saw yours, and I like this one, so I'm gonna buy this one. And it was a 10-minute, quick message exchange, send the invoice, and it was paid. And then it goes, and it's very interesting because now you can see on Morph Market if people like the snake and stuff. So
Yeah.
you can see okay, there's 30 people that have liked the snake, so there's 30 people that have noticed it already.
Yep.
And there's gonna be a person that goes back and looks at that and it's like, oh man, I wanted that snake. And
Oh
will message you, do you have any more? I've gotten those messages too, like especially in the last like 3 weeks, all my like red albino stuff sold out really fast.
Yeah.
Um, and I've got a couple messages. Hey, do you have any more red albino? I'm sorry, I have stuff in the incubator, but nothing from last year. Um, you know, and they're like, oh, I was looking at this one, and they'll send me the ID number of that snake. It's like, yeah, I saw that at a show last week or something. It's
Yeah, but you don't want it. The hard thing is, you don't want to be like a used car salesman. So
hmm
you don't want to tell people when they're messaging, you're like, okay, I'm going to think about it and I'll let you know, and it's like, you don't want to be like, okay, but I've gotten 7 emails. So you kind of, if you really
yeah,
want, you don't want to be that person.
correct.
I
Yeah,
usually don't, but I hate it because I've been on the other side,
yes.
where I've saved an animal to show Johnny, and then you go back on and it's been 6 hours and it's sold, which is wonderful. It's wonderful for the breeder. It's great for the hobby, but it's disappointing when you're like already imagining what you could do with that animal.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And like now, um, I'm controlling myself on Morph Market, because I got Swiss chocolate, I got Arctic corals, I got a good amount of stuff I within the last 12 months that I need to slow down right now. Um,
Yes.
but I'm always scrolling and checking out. The auctions are very tempting sometimes as well. Have you used that feature on Morph Market yet?
Haven't used it. I've thought about trying it with a couple of ball pythons.
hmm
Again, the hognose do really well
Yeah. hmm
without doing that. Maybe I might try it with a couple of the boys because, like I said, I
hmm
think that's pretty much. I'm thinking that's all I have right now. Is just a couple of the
Yeah.
boys, which is really, since I've started breeding, is pretty much all I've had each year. Is just a couple
Okay.
of. Usually they're het boys, and it's
hmm
so funny. By the time I'm like, okay, maybe I should lower the price or I need to think about it. I'm hatching the new clutches, and people are like, oh, well, can I get that boy to go with
Yeah, with
this
the
one?
female. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, same situation with us. I could probably look right now. I have maybe 5 females left from last year, and the rest are like another 20 males. Like you said, double het this, het albino, Arctic het this stuff, even visuals, Arctic sables that are males, where the females flew. You know,
Oh yeah.
and people just bought them up real quick. Um, and I have used the auction, specifically for males, and it's worked.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it's worked. So I think it has its place. I think the selling those double het males or single het males works really good for that.
I'll
I
think about that then.
Yeah, I sold a het albino, on an auction. I think about 3 weeks ago or something like that. And I think after the auction, there was only a $10 difference between the posted price and the auction that it went out at.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, I was very surprised on how that worked out. I go, okay, you know, it was like the last 30 minutes, people were bidding back and forth on it. So I think it went from like $150 to like 300 and some change in like the last 30 minutes of the auction. Um,
That's
you know,
amazing.
yeah, it's really cool.
I feel like there should definitely be a place for the
hmm
auction.
hmm
I did beta fish for a little while,
hmm
and that was actually part of the fun. Was you're looking for that specific one that you want, and so some would go for a lower cost, but some would end up going for 5 or 6 times the value of the ones you could tell were in the same group, but it had more reds on it, or it had whatever you were looking for. I think it's going to be important to educate buyers not to expect like what an animal sells for in an auction doesn't mean that's the price of the general
Correct.
market. That means you
Correct.
got lucky if you got a
Yes.
really good deal.
Yes.
Um, and you could get a bad deal. Not a bad deal. I should correct that. Sorry. You could end up paying more than you would, but it's worth it because there's something about the animal. I
hmm
mean, clearly, if you put two lemon ghosts up or two sables up, and one is, far better. Stop talking with my hands. Um, and one is far better than the other. It's going to go for a higher amount. And if
Correct.
somebody is looking for that exact piece, it's going to go. It could go for significantly higher.
hmm Yeah, and that's like we're talking about the purple line stuff, Arctics. You have those very high, just even the single Arctics. You have those very high expressions, and then you have those are borderline, right?
Yeah.
And you price them, like you said, you price them accordingly on what they look like. Um, you know, with what's it called, with Hognose? What this year was your most like anticipated clutch that you're gonna get?
We're trying to hit Swiss chocolate.
Okay.
So I think I'm gonna have and my head to head,
Hmm.
not from my visual, but my head to head. I think I might get it off that one. Um, and I am, like I said, working on the true hypo sable.
Hmm.
So that'll be cool. So those are a couple I'm looking forward to. And then of course, I know they're just white, but I love the Lucy's. They're
Yeah.
just fun.
Yeah.
They're very cool. And
Yeah.
that one, not great from a business stance, but I do look forward to, the prices come down some. I think that they're going to be one of the ultimate pets
Yes.
because for me in the hognose, I love it because the comments I get on my photography, especially with hognose, is from people who don't like snakes, and
Hmm.
they say we hate you for making us like snakes. And they're like, how are you making them look cute? Which I think hognose is the perfect gateway drug. I mean snake,
Yes.
um, because they are a size that's not intimidating.
Hmm.
So it's not, and they don't have the word python in their name because even though a ball python is never going to get big enough to eat you, it still says python, and people imagine this
Associated.
anaconda.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like it's
Hmm.
an anaconda-sized snake in the swamp. No, it's not. Um, I think the hognose are that size, and a lot of people that have a partner, whether it's male or female or whatever, who are afraid of reptiles, that size is okay. I'll let that come in the house, and they can warm up to this animal and realize it's not sizing them up for a meal, and they're super cute. And
Hmm.
let's be real, I have met more girls that were afraid of snakes than guys.
Hmm.
In general, it's pink. I
Yeah.
mean, there's not really a better way to be like,
Yeah.
see how cute it is, than to hold a little, pink noodle up, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's adorable. Um, so I think it's going to be pretty exciting when the Lucy's come down to that pet price. And I
Hmm.
think they'll stay there solidly because I think they're going to be. I mean, we know from the ball pythons, the blue-eyed Lucy's
Yeah.
are they they sell, 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 sell
Hmm.
because it's that pretty look. But I do think that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing like all the photos because I follow some pet owner accounts. I'm looking forward to
Hmm.
seeing all the photos from pet owners as they start getting Lucy's and stuff.
Yeah. So, it's very interesting to say that. And I've had that same thoughts on the Lucy's. I haven't bought the Lucy project in my collection. For that same reason where like to me it was, a very limited project. You get Lucy's,
Yeah.
if you do albino Lucy's, you get red eye Lucy's, and then if you do super Arctics, you get the black eyed Lucy's. Where like Jeff, has talked about some scale coloration stuff on the super Arctics.
Yeah, like the
Um,
translucent. That was
yeah,
cool.
yeah. I haven't seen them in person yet, so that's one of those things, right? Like I got to see them in person, but I'm probably gonna get some hats this year. So by the time that time frame gets there, I can produce those pet priced Lucy's and stuff
Yeah.
like that. You know,
I think
um,
that's where the market is. So if
mhm,
anybody's looking, I think when a project's new, there is a period where it's worth it to pay to get
mhm,
in at the higher price.
mhm,
And then there comes a point where I don't think it's as smart to get in it
mhm.
unless you just, are really wanting that project. Then absolutely. I
Correct.
think you should breed whatever you love.
Yeah.
You want to open your bins or look into your tank, whatever setup you've got, and be excited about it.
Hmm.
And the value of the animal, we put a value based on the rarity or the project or the work that has gone into making the animals,
Correct.
but that isn't actually the value of the animal or a
Hmm.
statement of whether the animal is prettier than this animal.
Hmm.
There's like trading cards, they can be very cool, some are just
Yes.
rare, and that makes them more valuable, at
Yeah.
least for you know
Yeah.
uh, so I
Yeah.
think that definitely the Lucy's are in a price point where it's start to look at it again to see about getting into it.
Yeah. For sure. I think that within the next, like you said, probably the next three years, some of that is definitely going to be just the right price for maybe a higher end pet, but it's
Yeah.
going to be enough where people are going to be okay. I will spend that extra money for that pet because it's an all white snake.
Well,
You
yeah, I
know.
mean, and we're seeing this, which is really exciting. Coming from the cat world, the cats and dogs are $1,200 to $2,500
Hmm.
typically for a purebred, and
Hmm.
people, easily pay that for a
Hmm.
dog. So it's kind of cool. I was a little surprised, not gonna lie, when some of my hognose, because they were, albino or coral, are selling as pets, but people, that's the color they want, and
Yeah.
they're still not even spending what some people are spending on a cat or a dog. So
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
it is really cool to kind of see um, the market look at reptiles as a worthwhile pet that you would put the investment in to get exactly what you want and support the work the breeder's doing.
Hmm. For sure. Yeah, that's one of the questions I do get asked a lot, especially the smaller shows, where there's more, first time pet looking for a pet reptile. It's like, why does this same snake cost such a big difference in price range? You get a $200 snake, and then you get a $3,000 snake, and you sit there and explain like what you said is that the time you put in, the genetics. Sometimes it's like the lavender. It's not recommended to do lavender, so there's less probabilities of getting visuals and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
You go to bed. Good night.
Mommy, I have a question. Can
Yeah.
I use the cup?
This cup,
Mm-hmm.
you got to rinse it out though.
Yes.
All right.
What's in it?
Energy drink. Um, so yeah, so that's I always like that moment too, to try to educate people about genetics and the rarity of certain genetics and stuff like that. I think is really cool.
Oh,
Instead, you
I
saying,
definitely think.
instead of just saying, oh, just because that's the way it is, right?
Oh yeah, I,
Yeah.
I think it's cool, and a lot of those people, I've had a lot of people that came in as pet owners that ended up,
Mhm.
later they're back and they're like, okay, let's talk about breeding.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny. I just recently got a message. I was in where was I? 2 weeks ago. I was in Fort Walton Beach doing Repticon there, and uh, a customer from last year messaged, "Hey, are you going to be in Orlando in July? There's a show there because I'm looking to get another hognose now." And like you said, he had just bought a really nice albino conda female just as a pet, and now he wants to get the male part of it.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah. So it's the wheels start turning. I think just the experience of being able to breed them and the whole process, it's really cool, right? Even if you're just gonna do one pair or one
Yeah.
time, it's a really cool experience to have
Yeah, and
with those.
hognose are really nice. Again, like that gateway.
Hmm.
They're so much easier, I think, to hatch. As far as you don't need this huge incubator. You can.
Yeah.
I mean, I will be completely honest. Most of ours have been hatched in a chicken incubator. um,
Really.
no
Okay.
problems
Yeah.
whatsoever. And I'm not even talking a fancy incubator. I'm talking styrofoam, and
Yeah.
no problems whatsoever. And again, that's definitely doable, especially for families who, like you said, my daughters, well, and my son, they love the hog nose.
Hmm.
They do the ball pythons, but the hog nose is like, oh, well, we want to see our favorite ones when they come over and we're cleaning.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I definitely think that's a great one if you're going to do something with your kids, and you want to kind of, like you
Hmm.
said, have a clutch, see if it's for you, then decide it's not for you, or it
Correct.
is.
Yeah. Yeah. With the ball python, switching over to ball pythons, what are your most anticipated clutches and like genetics you're working with this year?
Um, we are doing the monsoon, so we
Okay.
have had a couple clutches with that.
Hmm.
The extremist mace, that's been a lot of fun because we're getting to a point where it really reduces the pattern, gives them a really cool racing stripe,
Hmm.
and it brightens the snake, pumps the color a little bit. So we had several projects that we're doing with that I'm looking forward to seeing, because there's still a lot of combos to be made, so you don't know exactly how it's going to react.
Yeah.
And then hoping the Cosmos. We've had some locks and stuff, so we're hoping to get some of the Cosmos. I love that dirty, gritty pattern when it comes to
Okay.
to the ball
Do you
python.
have a Cosmo on your Instagram? Because I'm not familiar with that.
The cosmos, I'm sure there is on my Instagram. I just don't know how far back it is.
Gotcha. It's pretty far back. Okay.
It's probably, yeah. But there's
Okay.
only, so we were the first to bring them into the US
Mhm.
in I think 2020, I think. And so it's just now, like, we had our first clutch last year. And so it's been pretty exciting. It's really neat. I love being in on the ground level and getting to be, part of seeing, like, okay, now we're going to put it with this, or we're going to put it with that, and see what you make. Because you have no idea what's going to happen. Just like the monsoon, we're doing, could be a stupid breeding, but you never know. If anybody in the comments has also worked with monsoon, they know that very little seems to be breaking the monsoon pattern. It looks the same no matter what you put with it, just slight variations. And so we are putting it with tri-stripe, which is the complete opposite of this dirty granite. And I'm really looking forward. I'm going to laugh my butt off if it does nothing. Like, that's going to be the most hilarious thing, like in a bad way, but also really amusing that not even that could mess with it. But I think it'll be neat because you don't know. It could not work. It could just mix and not look great, or it could really do something cool. So for me, that's, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. That sounds like a cool, very cool, like if it works.
If it works.
Yeah, I think it'll be really cool. And I personally like the tri-stripe stuff. The monsoon's really cool as well. So I think that's a pretty cool what's it called, pairing that you have going on.
Yeah, I think it would be fun one way or the other. See, this is the part of breeding I love, is the not having a clue what's going to come out. And you're like, you can imagine it one way where the stripe stays dominant. You can imagine it where the granite stays dominant, or does it mix? You just you don't know.
Hopefully
but I will
it mixes,
laugh.
right?
I'm sorry. I'm gonna laugh so hard though if it comes out and it's like monsoon, like just more monsoon. That's how almost I made a Wookiee monsoon. It was like, it's monsoon. It's a very dominant pattern, but it's okay. I've pivoted my program. So talking about things not being what you expected, we expected the monsoon would play differently. Having bought into the project fairly early, we thought, okay, inchy and clown and all these things are going to make it look a lot different, and it didn't. So most of our program has pivoted to colors. So TSK, Monarch, Ultramel, get the caramel colors. Let's pump the purples. Let's put more oranges. So there's still a lot to do with it. It's just, again, you're switching almost like the opposite of an xanthic program, because in xanthic, you don't have color. So you're focusing on patterns.
Correct.
And this one, I'm just assuming I have the pattern that's going to be there. And now I need to, play with the color palette.
Okay, that was my next question. Where would you go with the color palette? You're working with the pattern and stuff like that. Where would you go? Like, I mean, like you said, we don't know what with the tri-stripe monsoon, but on top of it, xanthic. Like,
we got the head xanthics growing.
Okay.
So those will be coming before too long. And then we did lavender albino our first year. Haven't hit a visual yet, but we did hit lavender albinos. Like the Ultramel is that orange and purple. So it's like almost that caramely color. So you've got that. I think we've done a few others. Obviously Orange Dream, which pumps up oranges and so you keep those dark blacks and oranges. So just kind of playing with it in different directions to see, what it does and how it. I personally think that it seems like the monsoon does pump some of the reds, that rust red color. So I'm trying to put it in some color patterns that you would want to kind of boost that to see if it helps with that longevity of the color, because ball pythons tend to lose a lot of color as they age. There's very few morphs that get nicer. That's the part I like about bloods. Bloods look better every single day of their life, it's like, and then if you go and you're like, wow, look at it now, ball pythons, it's like, look at it while it's in the egg, because it's not going to look like this again. Okay, just kidding. Look at it after the first shed, then it's not going to look like this again.
Yeah. So, and that's a very interesting part. When I first started learning about ball pythons, people started saying, "Oh, it browns out." And browns out. I was like, "What do you guys mean it browns out?" Like, yeah, I was like, and they're like, "Oh, it loses its color." I was like, "Oh man, that's rough." Like
Yeah.
seeing a very vibrant baby. And this is me coming from like the hognose perspective of like, generally what you see come out is what you get, or
Oh
even
yeah.
sometimes even gets better, right?
Yes.
I was like, oh, that's rough. And I think that's why I also lean towards like the Xanthic stuff where like I know it's gonna be a black and white snake, right? To where like if it's a high yellow and then it starts becoming like a dirty yellow, brown, muddy yellow color, then it's almost a letdown after a while.
It
Um,
is. It
you
is.
know,
Yeah. But that's where you do have to play. So like
hmm
with my Xanthics, I work with JD Constrictor. He has the TSK Xanthic in the ball
hmm
pythons, which BPI is more popular, it seems like. And so I got a little bit of grief because I chose TSK. But just like we talked about with the hognose, with hognose, there is more like pickiness over picking the best of the best to move forward. So you're
hmm
looking at the range of purple, you're looking at the range of the sables, and you're picking the nicest to move forward. With ball pythons, for the most part, it's like, oh, if it's a clown, it's a clown. Just roll
hmm
with it, versus really taking the time. And John at JD Constrictors, he did pick the he picks the ones that don't brown as much, and he's continued with that, and then he puts the fire and pastel, which brightens. And so his like my adults from him are still almost perfectly clean black and whites, and I'm like, I'm gonna stick with that because
hmm
I would rather work with someone that's put that much time and there's less variability in the gene. So
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
see. There's still obviously things that can change. I'm wanting to. I have a gene. Well, it's a combo, but there's a gene on top of it. They just haven't figured out how it works, and it's called blue steel in the ball pythons. And it's neat because they're born with, instead of browns and blacks, they're born with yellows and blues, right? Like a pied hypo.
hmm
Okay, except they're not visual hypo. And what's really neat is as they grow, they lose the yellows. So the
mm
blacks turn navy blue, and what should be that brownish color on a ball python turns a soft blue. So there is no yellows or
That's
blacks
cool.
or brown.
Yeah.
And so I'm wanting to breed that into the TSK Xanthic out of curiosity to see if the gene is a true gene, because obviously sometimes things can just be a fluke in a bloodline.
hmm
I'm wanting to breed that in because, in theory, would that mean that as the animal aged, the yellows would actually be gone and you could keep a cleaner Xanthic? So I
Yeah.
don't know. It's a project. Again, I love the genetics. It's a
Yeah.
project I want to play around with and
Yeah.
see what happens.
Yeah. And quick, guys, viewers, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe. If you guys have any specific question about any of her projects and stuff like that, and we're gonna get to the photography part because that's a big part with your social media and your animals. Drop a super chat. We'll bring it up and we'll address the question as well. Let's say, and then just to bring in the bloods too. Um, how the bloods came in the last species, right?
Yes. Yes.
Was it? Did you want it a bigger animal, or yeah, that's what it was.
I did want a bigger animal, but I
Yeah.
do know I have limitations on how
hmm
big of an animal I can take care of and I can
hmm
handle. Um, I had seen the bloods. Again, you should not hang out on Marsh Market. Find a hobby. Um, but I'd seen them. Was really, just I love their colors. And for me, I'm not going to own venomous. Well, I can't own venomous in Tennessee unless I want to start a church. um, so
How does that work?
Um, okay, well, if you live in Appalachia,
Yeah.
here in the South, we're allowed to have snake handling churches. And if you file a permit, the state will allow you to have venomous because they can't infringe on your religious rights.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
actually, technically, the rules in Tennessee say we're not allowed to have poisonous snakes. So,
You can have anything then.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to try it though. And I know I'm too slow. I'm tired all the time. I would get bit and die. So for me, bloods have that big bodied, look without growing to a length that's not something I can personally manage. So it's kind of like my dream snake. And then looking at the market, I did see that, now that there's more morphs and more patterns coming out, same excitement as the hognose. More and more people are getting into it. And I was like, I love them. I want to get into it. And actually, the truth is I had put money back for a Camaro, like a Corvette, a fully loaded Corvette. And I was like, when am I going to have time to drive it? Let's just buy the snakes instead. So yeah, then we were in Bloods. I love them. We have a clutch that just hatched. So that's been pretty exciting. And I made some, I think, like world's first that hadn't been made yet. So that's cool. But they're just,
the
hognose and the Bloods are so much fun because like the Bloods change with each shed. The color just gets better and better. They behave differently. And that can be intimidating in some instances because you get used to certain behaviors. Now you have to look for other, like, are they annoyed? Are they going to strike? Are they cool?
Yeah.
And then
I was looking at this. Is this the clutch that you just hatched?
That's actually the Borneo clutch we hatched.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they hatched a day apart. But yeah, that's going to be fun to ID. I don't know what I was thinking.
It's funny because like at a quick glance, it almost has like a gaboon pattern. They're really cool. These are really cool to see.
They really are. Yeah, they're fun. But they're spicy babies. They're a little bit more nippy, but they just have a great feeding instinct. That's what I tell people anyways. But now that I love the Bloods and the behavior again is cool. Also coming from the photography, because you mentioned that, I enjoy working with other species. I enjoy the challenge and, figuring out how to best show that animal off because not every angle works. It sounds stupid, but not every angle works for every animal to show off their best traits. So part of that is just having a collection that's fun to play with, but also, to just enjoy. And for me, part of that is photographing them.
Yeah. And, with all these 3 species that you currently have and are breeding and stuff, are you doing this full time now? And, you because you said you were doing cats and stuff like that. Are you doing this full time as a business?
Yes and no. So we don't do any cats or any mammals. We have our farm animals, but we don't breed anything except we can breed goats to eat, but they're good. They're yummy. But then we just have the snakes. So Johnny retired 2 years ago and he's very, very active. So this was kind of also when we knew he was going to retire, it was like, okay, we could keep back a little bit more. So he's not bored. He's definitely not bored. And then I actually started writing. So I write pretty much full time now. Okay. And so that's kind of our 2 businesses we jump between. So, hey, at this point, we actually brought my brother on as a partner. And so he comes and kind of helps with, we need a new, rodent building. Guess what? You're all going to build this or, a bunch of bins cleaned, that kind of thing. So that's nice. And that has helped me because I get to be involved in a lot of the fun parts. It sounds so mean to say, but it's like, okay, so we're pairing. What pairing do we want to do? And then photographing and choosing babies and seeing where they've grown and that kind of thing. I get to be involved in all that. But on the days where I'm struggling with like my joints and things like that, I can focus on writing. And Johnny's not bored stuck in the house. He gets to he takes his coffee or whatever or his little glass of wine and he goes and sits in the snake house.
That's cool.
Yeah. He escapes us. That's his retirement plan.
That sounds like a great retirement plan. Like that's a what's it called? Something to strive for.
Now I will be perfectly honest. It might have changed last year, but for the first few years of breeding, the Hognose supported all the reptile stuff. It was actually the Hognose that came out of the gate producing, selling, and just keeping the price fairly steady. As far as with ball pythons, there's big dips. So a snake that's selling for 10,000 one year is, 4,000 the next year. That's, can be a big drop. So the hognose have been like a staple for us. And even just last year, when my brother decided to come on as a partner, we were like, okay, little bit more room to expand. And that was exciting. So we got to went from our old reptile building and we had our new one that's larger. And so then we were like, guess what? We're going to turn the old one back on and set it up just for the hognose. So that's been a lot of fun.
Cool. That's cool. That's definitely, like I could just imagine having a whole facility just hognose. And what's it called with the reptiles, and having somebody additionally to help with like the dirty work, the cleaning, the building, stuff like that. Have you seen that you can sometimes dedicate a little more attention to like the actual breeding aspects and paying attention to certain things like that?
Oh yeah, it has been a lot of fun. One, what I have enjoyed is so I'm teaching him the photography and the basic, because part of it's taking the photos and then part of it is editing the photos to ensure the animal looks as close to exactly what the buyer will get. Because you want them. I actually have him pull a little bit of saturation from most of my photos just because I'm like, I want the buyer to buy the animal. And then when they get it, they're like, I'm sorry, you take beautiful photos, but it doesn't do these justice. I love getting that email. Okay, it hurts my photographer's soul a little bit, but I like whoever buys from me to feel happier when they open the box of like, oh, wow, this is better than I expected it to be. So having him do a lot of the general photos, because that was a really big thing. I mean, when you're working with multiple species, I mean, there is a lot of photos. If you've photographed hognose, they are one of the most challenging species to photograph. Like, it is an adrenaline rush. Let me just say, a fast blending adrenaline rush when you're photographing honkies. But having him to just kind of take like the morph market for cell photos has freed me up. So when I have the energy and my body is cooperating, I can focus on the more creative. Like I want to put props up, or I want to use a more a photo where I'm just showing off an animal versus I'm trying to take exact photos of that animal for morph market. So that's been a very big thing. And then it's made it less pressure. Like if we want to go out of town, unless he's going with us, I have someone there that can check for eggs, check to make sure, after feeding that nothing got regurged or got like that kind of thing. So you have someone checking in, and that was a big thing for Johnny and I. We didn't want to expand without having someone that could come in if we were out of town or something like had to get to the hospital for something. We want to make sure that animals would keep the correct level of care.
And I was going to ask that question because like as you're adding projects, your collection grows and you're adding different species and stuff like that. I was going to ask is have you guys reached your limit? But it sounds like you guys are expanding now with the extra help. If you didn't have it, would you guys basically keep where you're at right now, or would
actually we were downsizing?
Okay.
So right before he came in, it had gotten to a point that with me having the bad days with my health to where, some weeks Johnny was doing most of it by himself. And then I would scrape together the energy to go get the photos and then sit and edit the photos, which, I don't think some people realize that can be, 8 hours or more of just, doing that. It was just a lot. And we had started talking about it, and it was like, we got into this to do it together. It wasn't supposed to be just, falling more on him. So I felt guilty about that when I was having, a bad time. And then again, like I said, the book stuff took off, and it's like, oh, do these book signings and do this and do this. And a lot of really cool opportunities that were smart for our family. That was part of why Johnny could retire. But, so we had actually started, we sold a few of our adult females, which we regretted because we were actually downsizing the ball pythons and the hognose. I didn't have as many bloods at the time, so it wasn't like that big of a deal. And then my brother came to us and was interested in like doing. He specifically asked about Hognose. Actually, wanted to start a business, and he's like, I really like them. How? What would you go in? Where would you start with investing? What would I need for a setup? That kind of thing. And Johnny and I talked, and we're like, well, rather than helping him, if he wants to do that, we'll absolutely support that. But why don't we just see about bringing him on as a partner? But instead of putting in, like with most businesses, you're either putting in sweat equity or cash equity.
Yeah.
Let him come in with sweat equity. And he was like, let's do it. I'm in.
Yeah.
And my brother, my mom wasn't a big fan of animals, ironically, since I have a zoo. But she definitely wasn't. So my brother hadn't really been around animals. And to this day, my parents are terrified of snakes. Absolutely, my dad can't even go in our building. He's so terrified of snakes. So I wasn't sure how my brother would handle, but zero fear. Sometimes he'll just stick his hand in the bin, and I'm waiting for it because I'm I know the snakes, and I know which ones might just decide. Yeah, I'm just gonna mess with this person today, But
yeah,
no, not squeamish. Really into it, So it's been fun sharing that with somebody too. Seeing someone new come in and get really excited. It's always fun.
Yeah, it is. And talking about what's it called, bringing in people into the reptile world, and especially specifically breeding for to be able to sell and stuff like that. Where recently I went to a show, and what are your thoughts about people that are longtime ball python breeders now getting into hognose because they're becoming very popular? What are your thoughts on that?
I think with any animal, okay, so obviously if you're in an industry and you're wanting to keep working from home or whatever, you're going to have to look at expanding when one market is floundering a little bit or is a little bit down. And again, the ball python market is picking back up, but it's picking back up slowly, and prices are different than what they were before. My biggest thing is, I think any reptile you picked, I think you could go into it with all of your heart and you could be successful at it if you put the time, effort, and in many cases money. And I hate to say that, but it's going to be hard if you don't find a way to save the money or whatever, or work off something with a breeder so that you can get a higher end animal. You do have to get to that point at some point. My biggest concern is not just breeding for the money. And obviously, yes, these are, we can talk about them as investments. We do, if we look at a new gene, first we want to know if we like the gene. We're not going to, I personally, for me, am not going to breed a gene that I don't like. I want to stand behind it and be excited when I tell someone to buy it. Not that there's anything wrong with the gene, but somebody who loves that gene should be the one selling that gene, not me. Because they're enthusiastic. They put the research into it because that's where their heart went. Just like some people don't like Lucy's. I love the Lucy's. I think they have their place. They may not be as exciting and movable as other ones, but I still think that they have their place. I just, even with my kids, sometimes they'll show an interest, and I'm like, I'm not going to push them into being reptile keepers. Would it be a lucrative business for them or a option for them? Yes. But if they don't love the animal on their own and they have that passion, then I would prefer they not work with the animal. And I'm sorry if that sounds harsh. So no, I love seeing new people come into the hognose industry, whether they're new to reptiles in general, or whether they are just coming from a different species. I just hope for the most part that they're looking at the hognose, number one, because it's a species they've been interested in, and now they're just ready to take that leap, versus just money as being the number one reason.
Yeah. And I agree, because I'm doing this as a business as well, because we're selling for a profit. So that's basically, that's the definition of a business, and I see that both part. I have friends that are ball python breeders that recently got into hognose, and have fallen in love with them, right?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and then I know, there's going to be a handful of people that is just, okay, this is what's in right now. This was moving. So I'm going to pick up a handful of stuff, produce, and hopefully they produce and I can do well with them. I'm just hoping and praying that there's no big fallout from those groups of people of the Hognose, because it's the Hognose community has been very good about um, keeping the project moving, keeping
Yeah.
the value of the project up, and not dumping the pricing and stuff like that, and the value of it. So hopefully, because like I said, I heard certain ways that people were getting into the Hognose, and it wasn't with the best intention. So hopefully
Yeah.
there's less of those people. We can't control what everybody does,
Yeah.
but we'll see where it goes. The good thing about Hognose is that we're still so young and within like finding different morphs and stuff like that. Then there's just such a big upside still on it.
Oh, I agree. And I think for me, one of the biggest things is I just hope um, some of the drama that can come with some of the other species. I don't really want that in the hognose world
Yeah.
because the hognose breeders as a whole are just super cool. Like as
Mhm.
you know, and you can talk to one breeder without being worried that you're going to mention a name that's going to make them uncomfortable
Yeah.
because or oh, I'm best friends with so and so, and then they're like, there's not really as much of that in the
Hmm.
hognose, and
Hmm.
I would hate for that community to
To
end up
transfer over. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
there end up being
I agree.
clicks, like
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
rather not.
Yeah, and there's gonna be clicks, right? Because different people match with different
Oh
people.
yeah,
But I think it's just like you said, like the Hognose community has been so respectful of each other and everybody's projects and stuff like that. That's been pretty good. But then I was recently speaking with somebody about this situation, where they're like, "Man, it's like the Hognose seems like there's no drama and stuff like that." I was like, "Well, I think the biggest difference is the amount of people that are in it, right?"
yeah,
As it grow, I had someone was like, I hope I'm wrong, but as it grows and more people start specifically getting into the hognose, community and stuff like that, there's different opinions are going to happen, different, friendships and stuff like that, and it might, cause a little bit of friction here and there. But I think I'm a firm believer if you respect everybody's thoughts and um, they respect your thoughts, and it is what it is, right? At the end of the day, everybody we live in the free country where we're able to say
oh
and
yeah,
think what we want. It's just how you react to these certain things, right?
oh yeah, and like I saw that a lot in the cat world, which is I think why I
Mm,
get so like when they say cat ladies, like oh crazy cat
yeah.
lady, that is an understatement. So it's not great, and I don't want to see that happen in
I
the
agree.
industry. But even then, my stance with that was always everybody has a story and
Hmm.
there's two sides to every story.
Hmm.
And so in the cat world, I just kept it to where I will make my opinion of someone based on my interactions with that person. I mean, obviously, unless it's like written out in red, like, okay, this person sold an animal to this person purposely knowing it was dying, like that would be a different situation of ethics. But as far as like the little bickering and gossiping, I want to make my opinion about people based on my interaction,
100%.
not something else.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to now get into like the photography side of stuff, and
All
I'm
right.
gonna bring up your Instagram and stuff, because this picture, the background, I would think it would mess up the color and everything about the snake, right? Because there's so much stuff,
Yes.
so much going on with the background, and um, we're used to seeing clean white backgrounds, clean, black and stuff like that. Um, how do you do this?
Okay, so backgrounds are funny,
Hmm.
and in that I haven't found there to be a single rule. So a lot of times the photographer will tell you you would go opposite the color wheel. So if so you're looking for the contrast color, what you wouldn't think would go together. And a lot of times that works. Sometimes though, like in this case, I didn't think it would work with like that one has a very dirty pattern to me, like on the sides, all the granite. I didn't think it would work. But I was like, you know what? The colors, it could work. And when I sat it down, I was like, oh, I love this. And Instagram, of course, cut it into a square. But the whole picture, it looked really cool. So definitely, it's a lot of playing. So don't be afraid to play. Don't immediately knock something out as, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are like, oh, on Morph Market, my solid white photos sell the best. Or, a solid colors work the best. I'm going to be honest with you. I have not found that to be true. Now, what you don't want to do is go and put, like, I have a couple of backgrounds that are graffiti. So they have a lot of really cool neon colors and that black. It's too much. If the eye is looking at something that it can read, it's not going to work for a cell photo anyways. So definitely, you still want to make sure the animal is the subject of the photo. But if you're scrolling Morph Market and there is 100 white photos, you're gonna stop on the one that is a different color. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and going to.
So I find personally when I post.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say with my Hognose, when I post, and they're not so farther back, but I have just some solid colors like solid green, pastel pink, some colors like that. Those tend to get a lot of views on them.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I've trying to work out the best picture and stuff like that. Trying to figure out the best representation of the actual animal as you see it. I was using white backgrounds, and then recently I go, let me try green. I do everything green with the clover and stuff like that. And I did a couple and stuff like that, and people were like, wow, I didn't think that was gonna work. It's like it really pops the snake, like that contrast. And one of my friends says, well, if I'm scrolling Morph Market and I see a green background, I know it's your snake because you're the only one currently doing green and stuff like that. But I thought that was a really cool concept as well.
It definitely is.
Like this is very, very,
that was
very
trippy.
Yeah.
That was trippy when I was taking that one. Now, I would not take that as a for sale photo. That is a keeper animal. I might throw it up on Morph Market for fun, just to change things. If an animal had sat there with, say, like a solid background, I might play with it and see if that got it. But yeah, looking through the camera at that one, I was like, this is my eyes. And then I had to edit it. I was like, it was so worth it, though. I love that photo.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's sitting like on a shelf.
Yeah, it's an acrylic. It's like an acrylic prop, which is pretty cool. Yeah. And I will tell you, so if Hognose people specifically, it works a little bit with ball pythons, but it's the smaller snakes are somewhat easier. So if you go to, I do a lot of acrylic boards. So like my black is mirrored plexi acrylic.
Okay.
And you can get various color. I have a mirror. Well, like the one you just passed where it was the snake in the sled, the blood python. It's a little bit up. One more right there on the red sled. So that's actually a piece of mirror plexi that I then put the fake snow on. And then in After Effect, I kind of blurred it a little bit to give it the frost. But because Hognose are little, this is a lot of fun. I think it's the Cricut machine. The ones that can like cut in and make like the little keychains and things like that. So if you go to these acrylic sheets online, and the big acrylic sheets obviously is what I recommend when ball python people ask me. Hognose are little. This gives us so much room to be creative. Those sheets are like this big. Like maybe at the most 24 inches, something like that. They are so cheap. Like they are so ridiculous. They come in every color. You can get patterns. That's an acrylic sheet.
Yeah. And I think and I think you've had some of this on your Morph Market, if I'm not wrong, right? Something like this. And that has caught my every single time, and it's really cool.
Oh yeah. And I think if let's see, if you X off of that one, let's see. I think there might have been a solid one up from that. Let's see.
This one
like maybe you've already passed it. That might be one. That's on a white, I think.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Anyways, there's some of them. It might actually be down now that I think about it. So They have, though, like the turquoise, purple, green, pink. They even sell them in multi-packs. And they're great because hognose poop a lot. And any background you get that's paper or fabric is going to be disgusting.
Yeah.
So these little sheets, you can buy them. And again, it's like, I think 10 to 20 bucks, if that. And a lot of times for like, $30, you can get a pack of 5 colors. What that allows you to do is to then try the colors. So, you might, for me, for instance, I know that pinks are going to look really cool on like the purples and the turquoise. But a snake that's like the purple tones might not look as great on turquoise. So again, you want to play with it, but they have, again, so many patterns, colors, and everything, and very, very cheap. And I think one's like CMB. I'll come back to the comment section and drop the drop it for everybody once this goes live. But again, it's so much fun because they're easy to store. They're out of the way. If you get 2 of them, this is the biggest thing. If you get 2 of them, one side's going to be shiny and one side's going to be matte. And what you want to do, because obviously snakes move around, put the shiny side up on the table and put the matte side behind the snake so that they're sitting at like an angle like this. So that when you're shooting at the snake this way, you're getting some of the purple so that if you get the snake gets a little out of frame, you still keep that solid color so it's not messing with people's eyes when they're scrolling, because you want it to look professional. You don't want it to look like, oh, now you see, my side of my countertop where I'm propping this up or whatever. But again, super easy to keep clean, which is a big thing with hognose.
The musking and all that stuff.
It's fun.
And if somebody was to ask you, and this might be a loaded question, it's like, if you were to recommend a beginner setup, like a beginner camera setup that would be, quick and easy to, pull out the box and start shooting, decent pictures, what would you do you have anything in mind you would recommend?
I would not recommend a Canon Rebel.
Okay.
That is because I started with Canon Rebel. Was one of my first cameras. They are not user friendly. Like even to this day, if you handed me one after I've worked with manual only cameras and stuff for years, I would struggle. It is not, everything is counterintuitive. It's not easy. You're going to be very frustrated. So I would recommend a Sony, even entry-level Sony. And the reason I say that is because they have the best technology and they continue to update their cameras a lot longer than Canon or Nikon do. They also were the first to put an animal eye. So whereas cameras can find that eye and focus, they weren't doing it for animals. I have Sony's what I shoot now, and it does recognize snake eyes, which is really cool because you have that little tool when your snake is running all over the table to help, hopefully get a little bit better shot at it. Another camera I love is, and it's not recommended a lot, is the Olympus or the Fuji. But I specifically shot with the Olympus. Not as commonly used, but their entry-level cameras are professional line bodies. So and they're lightweight because if you're not planning to be like a professional photographer who's doing these big shoots and all this other stuff and needs to be able to like take a photo 10 miles away and then zoom in on it, you just want something light, because the best camera that you have is the one that's with you, which is why cell phones end up being so valuable. But if you have a lightweight camera, you're more likely to have it in your bag. You're not going to get fatigued or as frustrated when you're trying to photograph hognose and they're going all over the place. But they're great because their entry line is far. It's more in the Canon Rebel price, which is where most people kind of that price point that they start at. But they have their lenses stay very, in a very reasonable price. They've got waterproof bodies, so you get poop splash, anything like that, you can clean it off. Most of us that love animals, we're also going to be out herping, or there's going to be some drops. We have kids. That's great because they're tough. So those would be my 2 recommendations: is to look at those. And then as far as lights go, light is your biggest thing. Everybody's like, what lens, what camera, what light? You need the light. I like off of Amazon. I'm not a big fan of light booths. There's a couple of nice ones, but I'm going to be honest with you. Unless you have flash units, in most cases, you are not going to get enough light to be able to, you don't even want that film because you're shooting through the side. you don't have enough light to sacrifice what's going through those films, on the screens on the side. So I like the light panels, like the LED light panels. Actually, I've got one. Let's see if it'll focus. That's what's giving me so much trouble.
Okay.
But it's just a flat square light panel, and you can get like a pair of them for less than $100. And put one near your face so that you're getting straight on with the animal. That way the front's well lit. And then, because this one would be at this side, I would put the other one off to the side of the table at a slight angle. And that will light the side of the animal. That way you're getting, less shadowing. And again, with 2 lights, you can usually get enough light to nail the photo.
Yeah. And for the lighting, is there specific like color temperature you're using, or?
Mine is, I usually try to keep mine in between. So it's not cool and it's not warm. It's because mine, you can adjust it. But either one is fine. It's going to matter on your camera. And that's what I try to tell people. White balance messes so many snake photos up. I'm going to be completely honest. It's my #1 pet peeve on Morph Market, because it is very easy to deceive people and not even mean to. So I'm not even saying it's like a purposeful thing, but if your lighting is on the warm side, and for most people, like if you don't know, that would be those yellow tones, the slightly orangey tones. Most of our kitchen stove lights, if you think about that kind of that yellowy warm glow, that would be that warm light. That warm light is going to make your yellows and oranges look amazing. That's not great for when your buyer gets the snake and then looks at it in their overhead kitchen light that's not, or, maybe their snake room light is typical fluorescents, which are going to be on the cooler side. So the animal is going to look dull. So if you want the accurate lighting, you definitely need to make sure that your camera or your phone is not auto white balancing, because it'll keep changing. A lot of people are like, oh, the only accurate photo is the one taken outside in full sun. That's not accurate. Your animal is going to look insanely amazing in the sun. So absolutely show that thing off. But it's popping the yellows. It's giving that crazy contrast. Most people don't realize that their phones are automatically set to automatically enhance. Most cameras are set to automatically enhance. So while they're saying no filter, it's actually already doing it for you.
That's one of my biggest complaints about using as a phone as a camera. Is like, I see something, especially on the iPhone, I take a picture, and then once it auto corrects, I'm like, this is not what I'm picturing.
Yes,
and that's one of the biggest things. And with iPhone, not that I found, and I've Googled and stuff like that, like, there's no way of almost correcting this unless you sit there and you really fully edit that picture.
Yeah. And sometimes by the time it's done that edit, it's kind of already messed with it, where it's really hard to get it back to looking the way it should. So if you want to ask me, the most accurate lighting would be outside, but not really in the shade. Not like you wouldn't go in a tree, in the shade of a tree, but maybe the side of your porch where you don't get as much direct light. That is actually, if you're doing true most accurate color, that would be your most accurate color. If you want your most beautiful color, you're going to do it about an hour before sunset, and that's going to make your snakes look so beautiful and orange and glowy, which is again great for photos, great for showing off on your social media. But for buyers, I think it's really important to try to nail that color. Whites are going to be hard. Everybody wants to do that clean white, but I'm going to be completely honest. Nailing white is one of the hardest things to do. Same with black. Blacks they come out dingy a lot of times, which doesn't do great things for your snake. So those midtones, the grays, those kinds of things, pastel colors, those tend to make animals pop a little bit more and tend to let the camera white balance. It looks better straight out of the camera without as much editing. If you're worried you're buying a snake that has been enhanced, one of the biggest tips to do is to look at the shadows and look at anything in the photo that should be white. So if you're looking at a snake on Morph Market and the background is supposed to be white, or maybe that the side, like the belly scales, would be white on this animal. If they're yellowed, you can guarantee that the animal has either had the saturation, the color up a lot, or the white balance was off. And so kind of keep in mind that it's just going to be a little less yellow orange when you get it. If that's not a problem, no big deal. But the shadows, if they really, some people pick that slider and they will, just like slide it up. If the shadows under the animal are orange and yellow, then on a white background, it's way off. So definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Same on the cool, because blue snakes, purple snakes, they're going to look their best if your lighting goes the other way. So if you start looking and the shadows are kind of looking like, a winter wonderland with like the blues and the gray, okay, you might need to say, hey, could you take a picture of that snake in your hands? Or something like that, just to kind of make, get a better idea. Because if it's in a hand, it's a lot easier to say, hang on, why is their skin so red? Or something wrong with them? Or why is the grass, I see some out on photos and it's like, why is the grass like, like cerulean blue? It's like so green, or like golf course, mini putt-putt course grass. And it's like, it looks like that. The snake doesn't look accurate either.
Yeah. And, like you said, lighting is such a big part. I was in the electrical and lighting business before, and I've been to like some of these bigger, what's it called, manufacturers, like training classes and stuff like that. And lighting, there's like the color rendering index is based on like the sunlight. And like you said, like you take your animal out and that it just, intensifies the color. And of course, if you see an animal in nature in the wild, that's what it looks like. This is sitting outside. But once you bring it in your house, it's different, because usually the lights in our house are not made to be able to like mimic the sun.
No.
There are some manufacturers that have like a 98% color rendering index, but they're very expensive. And then what happens is, it's funny. I had the story of a client, a very high-end salon here in Miami, bought a bunch of these very like, it's $100 a light bulb, stuff like that, because they're like, I want people to be able to see what their hair is going to look like when I dye it, when they walk outside in the sun in my salon. Well, that was great. And then one day he calls us and he goes, I have to get rid of all the lights. I'm like, what happened? I thought you liked them. It's like, yeah, but I had a problem. Now when my clients are going home and they're sitting in their house and trying to do their hair in their mirror, is nowhere near what it looks like. And they're getting upset because, it doesn't look like as good as it did in the salon and stuff like that.
That would be a big problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, lighting is so much, you can take a whole class just on the lighting sites. There's supermarkets use it too, as well, to like, a lot of people don't know, if you go to a supermarket, when you buy meat, it looks so much more red at the supermarket. And it's because they're using high color render index in those usually displays that makes the meat look redder. So when you get home, it's like, well, this meat doesn't look as red as when I bought it, right?
It's wild. It's absolutely just, I went from saltwater tank to a freshwater tank, and I wasn't really thinking about it. And so the tank had got drained, but it still had the saltwater light on it. So when I filled it up, I had, it was a planted tank with freshwater shrimp. And I was like, man, these things do not look like the photos. And then they're kind of dull looking. Like, what is up with this? And then like just one day I'm laying in bed and I'm like, it's the completely wrong color temperature. I've literally got the coral light that was the blue. I'm popping all the wrong colors. So then I got the correct, freshwater lighting, and now it looks beautiful. However, I did leave the freshwater tank light on because I adjusted it after research, and it makes certain colors pop. So it still looks really cool now. But people don't realize lighting makes such. Yeah. I actually posted a photo on my Facebook at one time where it was my lights. I had flashes going, and my flashes were going, and the white balance changed with like 3 photos in a row. So one was too warm, one was too cool, and then one was correct. And it was the same animal, but it looked completely different. And I posted it and I said, like, this is same lighting. We're talking 3 seconds apart because it was, and that's how big of a difference. This is what the animal looks like, but if you saw this, you'd be disappointed. If you saw this, you wouldn't buy the animal because you'd be like, wow, there's no yellows in this animal. So
Yeah.
it's very, very, very important.
Yeah. What about the brightness of the light that you're using?
I actually don't put my panels up on when I use the panels. I don't put them
Mm,
on full power
mhm,
because I typically with what my settings on my camera, I just don't need that full blast. Plus, sometimes you can blow them out. So
mhm,
just like you're seeing in me, sometimes just now it's going and it's kind of blowing things out. You
mhm,
can do that to your animal. It's really hard to get the colors to come back in. So, tinker with it. Sometimes you may, depending, especially like if you have a really great window, and you have like a little table or something that you're working with, put your table next to the window and use that as your light on the one side. And then just use one light panel because the more natural light you can get, the better the photo is going to look. We're just
mm,
trying to
mhm.
imitate it because a lot of us have weird schedules where we need to take photos when it's raining or it's nighttime.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but because my studio area is small, even when I use my flash, the professional flash units, they're still only at half power because I would blow everything. Like it would just be, it's white.
Yeah.
There's no snake here.
Hmm. Yeah. And then I know you mentioned that lenses and stuff like that for like hognose being so small. Is there a specific lens you're using?
So with Hognose, I love using macro because you get closer up. But the
Mhm,
problem that I find with macro is most macro lenses are too slow. Macro
mm,
needs time to focus, which is usually fine for your adult hognose. But
mhm.
if you're needing to shoot a clutch of 19 babies, you are going to
Oh
be so
yeah.
irritated.
Yeah.
um, so I actually just suggest looking at the minimum focusing distance. So if you go onto like B&H Photography, Adorama, I buy a lot of used lenses off of
Hmm.
it's keh.com, and they have like a really good return policy and
Hmm.
warranty. So you can get a lot of great lenses from them, but look at the minimum. The specs will say like this is your minimum and this is your maximum, like how far or whatever. Um, you want it to be able. Some lenses won't be able to focus for like, oh, it's almost 3 feet away from the. That is not going to work for a hawk nose.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah.
something that's like within that like 10, 12 inch
Yeah.
range. Um, but yeah, absolutely recommend macro if you want some cool shots for your Instagram or you have all the patience in the world. If you're needing to kind of, unfortunately, with hognose, no matter how good you are, you're doing a lot of shoot and spray.
Yeah.
You're just praying that you hit some photos and they're not all just photos of their butt as they leave the frame. Um, so you
Yeah.
want it to be a little bit wider, but definitely look at the minimum focusing distance on that because that's going to be your biggest thing. Because if you have to
Okay.
stand 3 foot away and you don't have a ton of light and you don't have a super high pixel camera, when you go to crop that later, it's not going to be a great quality photo.
Okay. That's great information because that's another thing too. I've haven't took the plunge and getting a camera. But I've researched and stuff like that, and it's just like, I've been using my phone, and the phone autofocuses as well, right? Even if you
Yes.
put the autofocus locked and stuff like that, like sometimes if you don't get that, especially for hognose, if you don't get them at that perfect still, like coiled up moment, you're gonna get. I get a lot like when they're moving, like one part of their body will be focused and the rest is blurred out. I'm just like, okay, that's not what I need. Like it's like you said, like the butt is the last part of the tail is focused and the rest is out of focus.
Yes.
Or just the head and the body's not right.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so
With cats, with cat breeders, when they would ask me for
mhm,
tips, one of the things that we learned to do if we had a very crazy kitten that was just all over the place, is actually video it. So if you're videotaping it, and it's because usually with hognose, you'll not all of them, some of them just come out ready to roll, but some
mhm,
of them will have that minute where they kind of think about things, and then they start, and then once they start darting, then it's game over. But if you can get that video, if you're super frustrated and you really just want something to share, do it as a video and then go back and freeze frame and screenshot it. It's not the highest quality, but at least you got the photo and
correct. Yeah.
you're going to not have to be as frustrated and you can work up to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's funny
yeah,
you say that. Like sometimes I'll forget, like, especially for like a YouTube thumbnail, I'll forget to take a picture, and I'll go back in the video. I'll just freeze it and, like you said, screenshot it and use it as a thumbnail.
That's
Yeah,
how I've done every YouTube video I've
yeah,
done. I forget. I'm like every time I forget. So I'm just like now I'm like, nope, I'm just gonna I go through and look for the one where hopefully I don't look like I'm making a face, you know.
yeah, yeah,
um,
100%. That's exactly
now
what happens.
one thing that's really cool as or an idea. So if hognose are running off your table, if you go to Amazon and you look up acrylic trays,
Mhm.
a lot of times they're like acrylic makeup trays, and they'll have you can get deep sides, thin sides because they make them for different things. But some of them are 18 inches, 12 inches, whatever. They have a side on them, but they're completely clear. So you can use those to kind of give yourself if you're photographing by yourself, it's hard sometimes to be like trying to focus and not let the animal tumble off of a table
Mhm.
or squeeze behind something they shouldn't be on. So you spend more time trying to protect them than
Yeah.
actually getting your photo. Something like that, like they're cheap, like less than $20. Just something like that on the table. And it doesn't interfere with, like if you've got a pretty background underneath, it's
Mhm.
not going to interfere with that. But that gives you the ability to have most hognose are going to like stop when they get to a side.
Yes.
Not every animal. Some like I have racers and they are just going to like fly over the side of that. It's not going to help. But with a hognose, especially baby hognose, that will give you that little bit of added security that somebody's not going to take a
Mhm.
leap.
Yeah. Like, and that's very interesting because I use a light box and it
Mhm.
has the inserts, but
Yeah.
there's a space between the sides and the back. And as soon as like they feel like they don't want to be in that middle center, it's straight to the side or trying to get behind the background. And
Yes.
it's a pain. And then, you're trying to take a picture of it and you're getting the side, the white side, and if you're using a different background, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it can be a pain. It can
yeah.
with hognose, everybody's like, oh, what are the great tips? And I'm like, okay, there's a few depending on like what stage you're at, but
Mhm.
honestly, it is patience.
Mhm.
Coming from cats, like cats are very frustrating. And I did a lot of like I did photos where there's like 8 kittens and I had them each posing and it could take a long time, but I was good. I was so
Yeah.
good at what because I learned the tricks, the tips, with dogs, if you're taking a photo of the dogs, everybody thought it was insane, but your photos are so good, the wackier you act. Just in case anybody's listening, you want the cutest picture of your dog on earth, get your camera ready, hold something in your hand and toss it up over your head so it goes like slightly behind you. You don't want to knock yourself out, but your dog will go and put its little ears up and tilt, and you'll get that instant perfect photo that you want with something as simple as just tossing this ball. So you
Mhm.
learn these tricks. Hognose are the closest of any other species I've photographed to cats. They are very determined.
Mhm.
When they decide they are not sitting there, there is very little you're going to do to change their mind other than just wait them out.
Yeah.
With cats, sometimes it was just a matter of let's put you back in the box and wait, and then they'd hop out and you put them back.
Yeah.
It was just very extended. But
Yeah.
hognose, if you're patient and do the typical hand over, let's calm down, and then slowly pull away. It's probably not going to work the first time, but give it a few minutes. Just don't be in a hurry. Stay calm. Don't get frustrated. Eventually, you'll usually get the shot. I've only had one or two where it was just like, you know what, I'm not gonna. I love
We're
photography.
there tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and there comes a time when you're just not gonna. It's not worth the stress on the animal. I
Yeah.
love photographing animals, but if I see they're at a point where they are getting very uncomfortable or stressed, it is not worth a photo to put an animal through some kind
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
discomfort. Hognose, for the most part, though, are the funniest. Like I had one girl, my first lavender girl, and she was my only hognose as a larger snake, not a baby, that had bit me. And it wasn't a bad bite. It was a dumb bite because she wanted to see if everything would fit in her mouth. If it could fit, she could eat it. And I did a really funny candy setup. And I had gumballs, these giant gumballs there. And I'm like photographing her, and I see her like she's posing so cute. And then all of a sudden she's like, and she's like just like seeing if it wouldn't fit. I wasn't worried, but it was just I'm like, you cannot be serious right now. You're literally
Yeah.
gonna try to eat the props. Um,
Yeah.
so they're fun, but you just need a lot of patience and a lot of paper
Patience. Yeah.
towels.
Yeah. Yeah. sometimes when I'm photographing our hognose for, especially for morph marketing and stuff like that, I end up 10 plus pictures, trying to get that, that perfect 4 shots of it, or more.
Oh, it's frustrating. And
It
sometimes you think
is.
you nailed it, and then you get back and you're like, I did not nail it. I thought
Yeah.
I did,
Yeah.
Um, I will say that photography in some ways at times has gotten boring for me because once I had the lights where they need to be and it's like, okay, I kind of know how to get what I'm going for.
Hmm.
There is nothing like a hog nose to humble you.
Hmm.
Um, it had gotten to the point that with most animals, it would be like I could take 20 shots and get the shots I needed. Like maybe 2 or 3 didn't hit, but the other, I'm just picking the best, and I don't mean that to sound cocky. I just mean like, I had a vision, this
Yeah.
prop, the snake here, this here, and I hit it like in the first few photos and we're done. No, no, Hognose reminds me that it doesn't matter how
Yeah.
much practice, how many thousands upon thousands of photos you've taken, you're going to work for this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I have a friend that does a very well known wedding photographer, and I have messaged him, hey man, you know, I'm trying to figure out the colors on snakes, and animals stuff. He goes, we'll have to sit down a whole day so I could try to explain how the lighting works and the colors and stuff like that. Have already having worked with like mammals and cats and take pictures of the colors and stuff that you see on reptiles. Was that frustrating? Like moving
It's
from
more fun. It was
really?
actually more fun, yeah. Because with a mammal, you're more limited
Hmm.
on the colors that you're going to get. So it was always fun. Um, you couldn't really hire me. Yeah, I had to want to photograph your animal
Hmm.
because it was a new challenge, a new look, something to do. But with the reptiles, it's fun because I like to get the clean classic, that black and the black, the white, the clean. But it's also fun to really get to play with what would be unusual, or because sometimes you want that pink hog nose on the pink background with the pink props. Other times you want it to be a perfect contrast, and that's what
Yeah.
makes it so much fun because it is in some ways like getting to do a painting.
Yeah.
Your
Like
pop art
yeah, like
or
this here. It
yes.
is. It's very similar colors, but still very appealing to the eye.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a lot. That was a lot of fun. Now, that same animal, like I would also put it on the crazy black and white that
Hmm.
we saw with the ball
Hmm.
python on the clear thing. That animal would pop off that too.
Hmm.
But that color just, I mean, it worked for it.
Yeah.
And I love
Similar to
that.
that. Yeah. Yeah. That's very cool. How like you're taking the more artistic approach to the, especially for your Instagram stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting fact, and that I didn't notice it, where you have all these like very props, artistic stuff on your Instagram, but then your morph market, you're taking a different style. Where
Yeah.
like I thought one for both, and
No,
no, yeah.
no. When I do my fun photos, when I'm like, I'm going to do this set, like I have 2 big sets I'm planning right now that are going to be like massive, like build a set for these kind of
Hmm.
things. Um, it's very much like I'm thinking, I want to do this set. Let's say I want to do rubber ducky bath time.
Hmm.
Now I'm going through my head and I'm thinking, do I want to put exanthics on that? Do I want to put, Arctics on that? Do I want to put anaconda? Like, what look am I going for? Or do I want to lean the other way and do pastels? And so whenever I do a set, I'm automatically thinking, so what's going to be really cool as an artistic thing, but what's also going to set the animal off, because you still want the animal to be the focus.
Hmm.
And with props, I was one of the early photographers to start using props with animals. They were more used with like newborns or school photos. And I was like, you know what? If we can do this with animals or with babies, why can't we do some of the same cool stuff with, for me, it was cats and dogs at first. Now it's been a fun challenge to scale things down to see what works with snakes, because not everything works with snakes.
Hmm.
And then, of course, what works with the ball python that I can wrap around something doesn't necessarily work with a hog nose that kind of needs to lay flat. So it's different styles, but um, it's definitely a lot of fun. If you're going to use props, I just just keep in mind to not go with too much clutter. You want the animal to still be the main focus. So a couple of things, yes, or make sure that if you're doing multiple things that they're not all of a different color. So, maybe you want to do pumpkins, like a pumpkin patch. Great, but make sure you don't have more than make all the oranges the same and then maybe like one creamish pumpkin or something. Don't go get 5 different colored pumpkins because that's going to compete with the snake. So you want to definitely, with the props, that's one thing I see a lot is that you do have to, and be prepared to take things off. Even when I go to some reptile facilities and take photos, I'll go with a bucket of different props and ideas. But when I get there and I start putting it and it's like, that doesn't balance the way it needs to balance, or that's too much, or that's not enough, and you play with it.
Mm-hmm. So what about, editing? Because I think there's 2 different mindsets, especially with reptiles. It's you take a picture, you get what you get, and you don't edit, or you edit and try to make it true to what you're perceiving through your eyes.
So for me, I hate that editing itself gets this bad rep,
Mm-hmm.
especially since your phone is editing it in a lot of, or your camera is
Mm-hmm.
automatically editing it to some extent. Also, if you're like me, I shoot on RAW, which means my camera is taking in all the information and it's giving me a very dull photo that I then have, but it gives me the ability, like if I was taking nighttime photography in RAW, that would give me the ability to pump up different things and darken so that you could see the Milky Way galaxy, for instance. And it's the same. Like if you're taking a photo in RAW and my lights don't go off and it's all black, I can still pump the exposure back up and see the animal. I have to edit it. It's RAW. Editing doesn't mean you're putting a filter on it and now it looks you're catfishing people. Editing just means it should just mean that you're making the photo look like the animal.
Mm-hmm.
So if you happen to have perfect lighting and you nail it, you saved yourself a bunch of time. Way to go. Crop that puppy and put it on more market. You're
Yeah.
done. But it's going to be very unlikely that you're going to get that same setting every time. The sun is going to come in your room at a different angle. Your camera is going to be like, oh, I see a white tissue in the corner of your table, and now I'm going to do the white balance differently. Editing is not taboo. The taboo thing should be making the animal not look like it does. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, and what I recommend to a lot of people is like the Lightroom app on your phone. It's so much, it's not complicated like the Lightroom on the desktop. I do use that, still very simple, but there's a lot more options, which can be, I know for me personally, it was frustrating when I first started because there was too many choices.
Mm-hmm.
But Lightroom on your phone, you can very easily crop, you can resize, like if you need to downsize it, that kind of thing. But you can easily, just like if it needs a little bit of brighten or fix, you need to fix your white balance. It's a simple slider, doesn't take but a second. So there's nothing wrong with editing. Just remember that your goal is that the photo, your end product, whether it came from in camera or from the editing software, should look like the animal.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, and if you're on Lightroom, actually, I should say this too. Again, not taboo because people get this idea of filters and we know what we think people have done with filters. But there are filters that just simply have the basic settings, especially now that there's a lot of built-in software to help see if the white balance is off. It can fix the white balance for you without you having to figure out sliders. So if, for instance, you go on Etsy and you type in Lightroom mobile presets, and they will have like food photography or product photography. That one's a really great one because they're selling products. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not pumping colors. There's usually like 5 actions. So you load it into your Lightroom, very simple instructions teach you, it like shows you how to do it. It doesn't take more than a couple of minutes, but it'll have one that's a little bit cool, a little bit warm, so that if your white balance is off and you have no idea how to fix it, you can just go click, nope, that's not right, click, no, that's not right, and just go down those 5, and you would typically hit the one that's perfect. And then it works a lot like Instagram, where once you pick it, you can adjust that slider and it will fix, if it's too much or not enough. Again, it's not a filter in that, oh, I am pumping up the tropical colors. It's not that kind of filter. I'm talking, like I said, specifically, mostly like food photography and this product photography, architecture. Those kinds of actions, if you find them, will really help simplify and make your photos look good. Because I see a lot of people take great photos for Morph Market, whether it's with their phone or their camera. And it's like, man, if they would just have like adjusted the exposure just because it's a little too dark. If it was just a tad brighter, which would be accurate. In fact, we've bought snakes from some people, and Johnny will say, "Hey, babe, will you fix the photo how it should look?" And so I'll adjust the white balance. And then when you increase exposure on something, typically the contrast is off. So you have to fix that. Like there's little tweaks that you make, and those actions will actually, or presets, will do that automatically, so that you still keep the original look. And you'll be like, "Oh, I love that snake. I'm definitely buying it." And I'm like, "I know, it looks
That's
amazing."
Cool. That's cool.
So yes, a lot of you guys are taking incredible photos. Now the next step, let's learn editing.
Yeah. So and that's editing can be, I think, a deep rabbit hole, right? And like you said, just like editing a video,
I hate
you
that.
you can go and I remember the first time I tried to edit a video for YouTube. I went on Adobe Pro, and it was way too much. I didn't know what in the world to do. And what I recommend now people is like, if you like Adobe programs, stuff like that, like Rush has just enough where you can edit, it will balance your audio, some lighting here and there, cut in and out. But where like if you do the full pro, it's like you're making a movie almost, and it's way too much. So you're saying, Lightroom on the app on your phone is just enough to start with working editing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is there any desktop, if people that like desktop, working on like a computer and stuff like that, any other program you recommend?
I think we froze up, or I froze up. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. Can you hear me? All right, guys. And I think we might have lost Brittney for a few seconds. But while she is, we're getting back her connection back. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. We are going to be doing a giveaway once we reach 1,000 subscribers. All right, she is back. There we go. We got you back.
It froze up, and I was like, "Oh no!"
Oh, wow.
It started storming.
Okay.
So I'm thinking it's affecting.
I get it. Miami storms kill us too down here. So I was asking if is there a desktop software or program that you recommend for beginner editing and stuff like that?
So I started with Photoshop Elements, but I will be honest with you. I personally, when I started using Photoshop, found it to be easier than Photoshop Elements. So you could try that out if you wanted to. I would do, again, if you like Adobe products, which I used Lightroom, and a lot of people could just use Lightroom. They don't even need anything beyond that. But if you do the Lightroom with the Photoshop, I think it's like $9.99 a month or something like that. So you get them together as a photographer plan, and you don't have to like prove that you're like a photographer. You can just get that plan. I recommend the exact same thing, and I can recommend in the comments. But just like I talked about the presets for the Lightroom, they're called actions for Photoshop. And if you're intimidated but you're wanting to learn, I highly recommend looking into actions, just because it gives you a jump off point. You still can adjust it. I'm not talking like, you're going to make everything a pink rainbow candy cane, or, give your snakes big lips and, smooth skin. These are, they can help, and they can help you. Like, maybe you're looking at your photo and you're like, I know it should be a little better, but I don't know how. You can click and you just hit a play button, and it will run these that these photographers have made, and then you can just adjust how much. What's really great is those same photographers have videos on their website where you can watch, and they'll turn them on and off and show you how to use them. And it's so user friendly. So if you're really, really interested in getting started, but just don't know where to start, I suggest starting with the actions. One of my favorite is called Greater Than Gatsby, and they have both Lightroom and Photoshop, but they have like their bases, and it'll be like fix underexposure, fix overexposure, just drama, or it'll be like just simple clean. That's what I use a lot. It's just simple clean, because it adjusts those little things and it saves you time. A lot of wedding photographers use these, because if you've looked at wedding photographers, sometimes they have a look, and they've either designed that recipe and saved it of like, oh, I like these yellows and soft blues, and or they have an action that they just run because it saves so much time. And that's how I do my bulk editing, is I have a set of things that I run on my photos. And I don't have to on every one of them. And a lot of times I'm lazy and I don't. But if I do it, they still look like the exact animal. But you've got to remember, our eyes are seeing things with color and shadows and lights. So if your photo's flat, the human eye is not as attracted as if it's seeing this photo that has dimension to it. So that's where that importance comes in. Yeah, everybody could take a black snake on the same background, but the one that's colors pop a little bit more is the one that's, and I'm not saying pop as in you've made it look like it doesn't look. Yeah. I'm just saying the photo looks a little sharper, a little cleaner. That one's going to get clicked first in most cases. So, like I said, I love those tools because I am busy and I have a lot of things going on. And if you can speed up that process, it helps.
Yeah. No. And when we're talking about like the way the market is, especially with the ball pythons right now, any little edge you can give your morph market listing or your Instagram stuff, it helps out, if you moving a certain snake and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think owning a small business and breeding and doing all this, sometimes it's a lot, right? To try to
we wear all the hats,
everything, right? But having some knowledge of a little bit of everything is very important. And I really appreciate you taking the time tonight to give us a little glimpse into especially the photography stuff, because I know I've heard from different people, like your pictures are really good. They catches multiple people's eyes and stuff like that. And that's how I first I think scrolling through Instagram, one of your pictures came up and I was like, oh, this is really nice.
Well, I think that for me, I don't vend. So a lot of what people know of me is from social media, and that's where you get the chance when you go to a show to present your animals to people. You get to present yourself that way. Yeah. And especially if you're a breeder that doesn't have the ability or the time, or just doesn't, vending's not their thing, then, maybe consider how you can be unique in the market too. Maybe that's photography, maybe that's really cool videography, because like we have the amazing guys like you who are doing these podcast videos, but let's be honest, there's not a lot of just sick reptile videos. Like, where it's just, I'm talking about like sound with it, documentary style, but just cool clips, like these reels that we could all share on, there's not a lot of that. That would be, I don't like video. It's not my thing, but somebody should totally jump on that and just become the king or queen of these incredible snake videos. There's a place for it.
There is. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's presentation and be creative. That's like, to me, go to Home Depot, the flooring department, the tiles. They're not really usual tiles, but that like laminate that snaps together.
The laminate.
Great background. I mean, it's going to look slick, professional, easy to clean. If you get the gray tone, so you got the grays and the creams, it'll help your white balance hit correctly while still giving your snake this really cool effect. So, that was for me with photography. It was just, Johnny will laugh at me. We'll be out somewhere and I'll freeze and I'll just be like looking at this random item on the shelf and he goes, what setup is it? Because he knows that I've spotted something that it's like, I just am starting to put together like, oh, this is going to be part of a set, So yeah, it's a lot of fun. but just be looking for the weird thing. That weird wrapping paper, it's
Mm-hmm.
like that is some cool wrapping paper. Great, get it. Put it a piece of acrylic, clear acrylic over top of it so that it's not, getting wet spots. Use that. You'll have a unique background that most people haven't thought to use. Crinkle up some of the shiny gold paper and stick it under the acrylic. I mean, you just have, you get to have fun with
Yeah.
it.
That's cool. Because like I said, I didn't think about two different, setups for pictures. It's like, all right, I have this one picture, I share it everywhere, Morph Market, social media, and stuff like that. So it's a new, a cool mindset that you have given me now, thinking about certain things like that.
Yeah.
Before I let you go tonight, one last question.
Okay.
And like looking back, through your breedings and buying animals and stuff like that, starting with the reptiles, is there anything you would have changed when you first started and with the knowledge that you have now?
Um, I think with the hognose, probably I wish I would have went a little heavier, to be
Mm,
honest, from the start. I wish because I did jump into the ball pythons fairly quickly, which I adore ball pythons, so no regrets there. Um, but I mean, hognose were my first snake love. So I do wish I would have went in a little heavier then because I'd be a little bit farther ahead into my projects. One of the other things I wish is that I'd found a way to make room to keep more holdbacks. I made some recessive projects and then I could only keep a pair. And I wish I could have kept two pairs. Because you don't know. I mean, sometimes
yeah,
you can have siblings and one just doesn't grow as fast as another, or,
yeah.
you know, maybe I've had a couple that I loved, but I just didn't feel like they ever got to a size that I was comfortable breeding.
Hmm.
And I chose to just place them like, it's a pet. Place it with a pet because it's healthy, it's fine. But I do think as breeders, we have a responsibility to try to breed the healthiest, best examples
Yes,
of a species.
yes.
Um, so I wish that I had, instead of immediately be like, okay, I just need to make room because I got so many projects to start with. It was like, okay, I can keep one pair of this. I wish I would have factored in a little bit more room to keep back, multiples of a project.
That's a really good point, because sometimes we think about, okay, I'm gonna keep this one male and this one female to one project, and then especially a female, you wait 3 years, or 2.5, 3 years to breed her, and either she hasn't grown to the right size or just not a great breeder.
Yeah.
Now if you have spent 3 years raising this and you have no backup, that's yeah,
Yeah,
eh,
it hurts. Or I have a friend who ended up with an egg eater, and every
oh
clutch she
my
gets from this one,
god.
it's an egg eater. And like when
Yeah,
I started, that wasn't even on my radar.
yeah,
Like that
yeah,
was even a possibility.
yeah.
So
And
now it's
I've
like,
heard
okay,
once they do it, they'll keep doing it.
uh,
I've heard people say, like, once they eat eggs, they'll always do it.
I think I've been lucky. But then I look back and there's like one girl, and I'm like, why doesn't she ever give me eggs? And I'm thinking, I wonder if she's giving me eggs, and then
She's
she's
eating them
eating them
all.
before I find them. So I'm watching you now.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I do think that unlike ball pythons, I mean, that they're not all going to breed every year. You know that sometimes things happen. It's that
Hmm.
we're working in agriculture
Hmm.
is the reality of it. Some might not breed. You might end up with a hermaphrodite that you that you didn't originally realize that you
Hmm.
had. Um, but across the board, most times with ball pythons, you could just keep a pair of hets, and
Yeah.
it's good. Hognose seems to have a little bit more variable that I
Yeah.
didn't initially come in banking on. So if I were starting over, my advice to myself would be to either go in and make sure I grew enough space to keep the babies when they were, they hatched, or maybe if I couldn't expand, to start smaller, like just a couple of projects to start with until I could work up to have, an additional rack or something like that.
Okay. No, that's really good points of views. And it's funny because, like, I have a couple, like, my type project, Arctic my type project holdbacks this year, and I'm just like, am I keeping too much? But then I realized, you think you have that thought. It's like, no, because if this male doesn't work out, then I have this female. I have this. And another thing with hog nose, right? You can't run one hog nose to like 3, 4, 5, 6 females.
No,
You know,
you
and that's
can't.
another thing. You know, with so many males being left over from like to the last ones to be bought is
Yeah.
get the extra male because you never know.
You don't. You think, oh, it's the females, but no. I mean, I have a boy that he's old enough to breed, like past old enough to breed,
Hmm.
and he still hasn't figured things out. And I did think, because you learn as you come into the industry. And originally, I thought, okay, it's like everything else. You have your girls, you have a boy. You kind of know how many of each you should have. And then I was talking to a breeder, and I was like, so how many holdbacks do you have? And he basically said that he keeps a holdback growing up for that could replace every single animal that he has. And I'm like, whoa. So we're talking like double numbers just
Yeah.
because you don't know, again, if something's not going to work out. Or, I mean, that's great because if a project hits really hard or oh, I really need this animal, you've got another one growing up. But
Hmm.
that was a different way of thinking about it, okay, wait a second, I should have double the number so that I don't lose a project, or if something went wrong. I
Hmm.
mean, I've seen some people like their males get eaten by their girls, and so it's a thing that happens.
Hmm.
I haven't, thankfully, have not experienced it yet, but I'm assuming over the years at some
At
point
some
that
point, you're gonna run. Yeah.
you're gonna run
Yeah.
into it.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's definitely, I think, one thing that I haven't found with the other species I've worked with as much as with the
Okay.
hognose, that it's good to keep in mind a backup. So there's a project that you would be heartbroken if you didn't get to work with it, or you had to start over and buy a piece of that again. Maybe make sure you have room to keep more than you want. Yes, I am giving you permission to keep all the holdbacks. No, just kidding.
You go to your significant others like, nah, Brittney said I can keep all of them.
Yeah, I know I'm gonna go to Tinley next time or whatever, and people are gonna be like, "I have to have words with you. Do you know what my husband did, or my wife did after your podcast?
Yeah.
They wouldn't let us
Mhm.
sell anything."
That's good. And like I said, before I let you go, any other topic we did not cover or any question that you want to, be asked or answered?
Think of one, but
Okay.
I will check on this over the next few days. So if anybody watches this and has questions over the next couple of days and wants to drop them in the comments, I'll come back and try to
Perfect.
answer as many as I can.
Okay. Perfect. Um, just thank you again for coming on tonight and spending your time with us and giving us a lot of insight to your world. A lot of knowledge about the photography. I feel like we can do probably like just 2 hours just on photography and stuff like that. You have your YouTube as well, right?
Oh yeah,
So
I'm not very good at editing videos, so you can join and you might see a video next year.
yeah. But anybody that wants to, follow Brittney on any of the social medias, her more market stuff, everything in the description down below. So make sure you guys go and support her, go follow her. And we're gonna give you guys a good night. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.